Dawn, is this agenda, did we find out that last week John Grace wasn't scheduled and it was just a...
Yes, he emailed me, but
Oh, so he was scheduled, but he emailed you to cancel, so now he's really on this week?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He apparently emailed at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't check.
Oh.
Check it first thing.
I just remember we weren't sure if it was even the right week or something, if we had it messed up.
No, he was supposed to.
Take a look at the minutes. Morning.
They're mine.
Oh, they're yours?
Yeah. Can we please add, under Highway Department, at the very end, that I would like to see the county apply for the funding to replace OS 65 due to the 3-ton weight limit? Because that is what makes it a pressing issue. It's not just because that's my district. I mean, obviously that's one of the reasons, but that 3-ton weight limit is a concern. It's kind of an emergency type situation, since that's one of the only throughways to get to the highway from east of Lincoln, or Lucas there. And then under security systems, we requested a second bid. That was the kind of the summation of the board to request a second bid on that after the proposal by Tangeman. The other correction that I think under District 3 Commissioner, under my portion, the correspondence that I read in the email, and I know, Dawn, you probably don't have a copy of it, but basically, it wasn't just concerning the Council on Aging relocating their office. It was a list of concerns from the Lincoln Senior Center about the Council on Aging.
Just strike relocating to another office.
Sure. And it should say read correspondence received from Lincoln Senior Center. I think that would kind of be the key note here, because we've had correspondence from the Sylvan Senior Center for quite a few years over this issue. Now we're starting to receive the same type of complaints from the other senior center. That's all I have. Those 3 things.
There are no other corrections, I entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes as corrected.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. I do have one question. Dawn, under health department, and it said about LaDonna answering questions, the history of the Senior Care Act program. What we really wanted, though, that we didn't get to was for her to explain the disbursement or something. Do you remember that was kind of what we talked about, and then we never really got to that topic?
About her suggestions for the senior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're gonna have to do an extra meeting next week. We're into the month.
You mean have a meeting
Can we combine them?
on Thursday instead of Monday because Monday's Memorial Day?
We could do that.
Let's do. I would.
Do you wanna do that?
Do what?
Do you have anything on the agenda yet for,
I texted Hannah and she said just LaDonna, and LaDonna had said she could come either day,
okay,
so.
it doesn't matter to me.
I'd move to have the regular commission meeting on Thursday, May 31st.
That work for you, I'll do.
Are we gonna do
And
8?
cancel
Are we gonna do
8
8
o'clock,
a.m.?
yeah, we can do it at 8. It's not raining.
Are we doing 8 a.m.?
Yeah.
At 8 a.m.
Do I have a second?
Well, that's it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have 2 web fund disbursements. One to the Sylvan Senior Center for $800. One to the Lincoln Area Chamber of Commerce for $4,000 for repairs to the building, and I believe the senior center was buying a power lift chair, is that right?
Yes. I think she said yeah. I forget what they're called.
Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, they're gonna do some work on their building, chuck pointing, and they got mortar deteriorating on the outside.
I move we approve the recommendations.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the web fund recommendations. Is there any other discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, David, you up first?
Do we want to go ahead and approve the
Oh, we could.
I
That
mean,
one
I-
is a credit,
return?
just a credit for,
They were fine with me.
Okay. Yeah. It's bills for the Lincoln Park Manor repairs. Faucet handles and a toilet seat, maybe? Is that what that dealt with?
seats and springs for one, and one's a brass vacuum breaker repair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you folks?
Pretty good.
Good. Just a brief synopsis of what I've been involved in lately. April 24th and 25th, I attended a PER 220 emergency response to domestic biological incidents class training that went on 2 days down in Wichita. Addressed not discussed biological agents that don't have immediate produce symptoms in victims, and signs of biological agents are not as apparent as other hazards responders may encounter. Intentional biological incidents are usually acts of biocrime, biowarfare, bioterrorism, or agroterrorism. Unintentional biological incidents are usually either naturally occurring outbreaks or accidental releases of agents. Incubation period in this time between exposure to a biological agent and the initial appearance is called clinical sign. Today, approximately 75% of emerging infectious disease and 60% of pathogens that infect humans are zoonotic. Zoonotic diseases are twice as likely to be associated with emerging diseases as non-zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic disease is a disease that can be passed between animals and humans. The virus that causes the flu can be transmitted from pigs to birds to cattle to humans. Crossover describes when an animal disease moves into a different animal species or humans, One example of a disease that can cross over from animals to humans is avian influenza, or bird flu caused by influenza A virus. Flu viruses have the ability to change and mutate. These changes and mutations can occur slowly or rapidly. Emerging disease, a disease that has gone unrecognized. HIV in the 80s and diseases including Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, or H7N9 influenza today are emerging diseases. Reemerging diseases, sometimes referred to as a resurging disease, a disease that has been around for decades or centuries, but emerges as a new outbreak in a different form or location. West Nile virus in the U.S. in 2004 and the 2014, I'm going to butcher this word, chikungunya outbreak. Steve, help me, did I get that right?
Good luck.
Close enough.
Okay, thank you. In the Caribbean, this spread to Central and South America and across the United States are re-emerging diseases. Novel pathogen, a pathogen that is new or different from what has been seen before. Emerging infectious disease are caused by novel pathogens. Health Map tracks biological incidents in the world today. All diseases that exist today were once emerging biological threats. Between 1940 and 2004, more than 335 emerging infectious diseases were reported. Several diseases have re-emerged over the past 20 years, often in new geographic locations. Not on the synopsis, but April 30th we had our LEPC meeting up at in the basement at the hospital. Items that were discussed were communications amongst just the agencies. The LEPC conference is coming up July 25th and 26th. Red Cross, Ottawa County, myself, and Red Cross had hosted the MARC and the shelter training over in Beverly. And then the HMEP grant, still haven't heard anything back from the federal government, waiting on that. LaDonna and I, Sherry Pickering, Deputy Kewen, and Katie Gardner from the hospital all attended a mass fatality exercise down at the Webster Conference Center on February 15th. Tabletop discussion, and it was broken kind of up in counties for the North Central region. So there was 12 counties with a pretty good amount of people that were there. That was discussion at the LEPC meeting. April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we had the storms come through Lincoln County. Storms were within the county for 3 days, or on 3 days. Had storm spotters out all 3 days. Hail reported in different locations throughout the county, along with reports of rotation and lowering reported in Lincoln and Beverly. Sirens were activated in Lincoln, and power was out in Barnard and Beverly. So there was a need to have the first responders in the communities drive up and down the streets with the fire trucks to make communication with the people, make them aware that the sirens were out and seek shelter because of the rotation that was spotted. Reference that, there's been some discussions started also, reference backup systems that were in place or need to be in place at each fire station. Again, that will be discussed at the upcoming June 5th Quarterly Fire Chiefs meeting that we're hosting in Barnard. May 9th, I went to a meeting in the basement at LCH that had Central Kansas Mental Health. The hospital was there, along with the health department. Lincoln Park Manor, were they there?
No, but
Okay.
the school district was there.
Kathy Robertson was there.
298.
Thank you. And there was discussion, and I was only able to stay for part of that meeting as I had a previous meeting scheduled. With that, part of the discussion that I was involved in was in the event of a disaster, would their agency be involved in coming into Lincoln County if we had a MARC, again, multi-agency resource center, or a shelter set up to communicate with people that were struggling with the aftermath of losing a loved one, a pet, or property. Was told that in the event of a disaster, that if needed, the agency would respond. Again, LaDonna has a 24-hour contact number. She did give me that information and the person's name that is associated with our region for Central Kansas Mental Health. May 10th, I hosted a North Central Kansas Emergency Management Association meeting at the Finch Theater. Had representatives that spoke about the Kansas Wildland Task Force and discussed the expectations of the rough draft and the direction that Kansas Fire Working Group was hoping to move. Asked representatives to come speak at the Quarterly Chiefs meeting on June 5th at 7 p.m. in Barnard. Mark Willis, the State Training Officer, attended the meeting and told the group that his intent was to continue to have an active program with the state of Kansas. He advised that he is working on continuing to have a good program and that he was trying to carry on, fix, and improve what was previously been set in place with Kansas Division of Emergency Management. May 16th and 17th, I attended my basic emergency management class. Originally I was supposed to go to Topeka for that class, but that was on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and I opted out of the class to stay in county for the storms. Had the opportunity, Division of Emergency Management had contacted me Monday of last week and asked if I would be able to come to the Topeka class. I had cleared my schedule and was able to attend that class. During the class, it was reiterated that we can have a local disaster declaration put in place at any time, and this is good for 7 days when it is signed. You can have a verbal disaster declaration in place. If, for example, I need to call KDM and say, hey, I need these things, I can contact Terry, you can say, yes, enact this, and then you guys can have your discussion. So a verbal is okay to have an initial inception, and then through that process, you guys have your special phone meeting, and yes, you enact the disaster declaration, and then after that, the next time you have your normally scheduled meeting, that's when you sign and date the disaster declaration. Governor Collier has done recently, had done a few of those with the expectations of wildfire. He signed a state disaster declaration ahead of the event, and that it wasn't needed ultimately. But you can do this as often as you like without any pushback because you're trying to be ahead of an incident. May 21st at 12 o'clock, I'm going to be in Ottawa County for an emergency response training session with all of Ottawa County employees being involved in having the courthouse closed from 1 to 5 o'clock. This will be an active shooter scenario involving all departments of the county along with North Central Special Response Team. That includes law enforcement officers from 12 counties within the North Central Homeland Security Council region. Interested LEO units wanting to participate just need to contact Under Sheriff Scotty Becker from Osborne County or Tyler Van Covern from Ottawa County to get involved. One last attachment that I put in your packet of breakout. This gentleman's going to be talking, and this is being hosted by the Healthcare Coalition, the North Central Healthcare Coalition. This gentleman's going to be talking Thursday, May 31st from 1 to 5 o'clock up in Beloit, and then on June 1st he's going to be talking down in Salina from 8 to 12, why teens kill. We'll talk about teen killers, school shooters, mass murderers, special serial killers, causes, warning signs, triggers, and preventions. Sent this information out to the school districts. I think Mrs. Robertson is planning to attend. I know Jude, Mr. Steckline over in Sylvan, he has informed me that he sent this information out to the staff also, and he has some people, he didn't give me a number, but that are willing to attend. This also went out to the fire chiefs and to law enforcement in the community.
Are you familiar with him at all?
I've never been to any training that he's hosted, but I've been told that he has spoken at a national law enforcement seminar, and I heard good things about it.
I'm just wondering if there's a Second Amendment agenda here at all.
Yeah, I don't know, but so that's all the information I have.
I guess I would be interested in hearing what your reaction to today's meeting in Ottawa County is, whether Lincoln County needs to do that. I think we continue to see those incidences occur quite frequently, and I am beginning to become concerned about the access to this courthouse being wide open, knowing that there can be issues with not only the county treasurer but the county clerk as well. And we are not very secure, I guess is what I'm saying. Or lack security.
Is there a reason that they chose the courthouse instead of a school setting, being that everything we hear about in the news is all
I do not know.
related?
I know Deputy Van Covern that's involved in the North Central Special Response Team. I know him and the emergency manager from Ottawa County, Marie Ballou, have had interaction and discussion, and they took that before the commissioners, and they said, yes, let's do it here. As far as the schools, I don't know why they're not.
The school's still in, no, it isn't either. I was going to say, school's in session.
We're not in
Mitchell.
session anymore, but
Mitchell, but Ottawa County closed too last week.
I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
as a scenario, as a practice scenario, you know, what we see is not the courthouse
You know.
setup, but
And one of the reasons.
it's all
may-
similar, I get it.
May be that the school maybe have secured their, to one door where the courthouse in Ottawa County is like this when it's open. I know they don't have any I'm sure they don't have security.
And didn't Ottawa County have a jail breach the one
Yes,
time?
yes, they
And they had
did.
a person,
From the jail, come to the courthouse.
No, he escaped. He
Well,
escaped and he was
escaped
running
from
around
courthouse,
Mitchell
I
County,
believe.
and I think he ended up getting
Oh.
captured up
And that-
Nebraska, wasn't it?
So I know we
Or up
have no
north.
firearm signs, but does that mean that our own staff here are unable to have any firearm protection?
county
County
property,
policy.
I'd say I believe that county property is exempt from employees being allowed to carry.
What do you mean exempt? Exempt as in,
As we cannot have. I think that's what.
maybe we need to address that.
Do you have something, Norman?
Yeah, the legislature's already addressed the issue of courthouse accessibility. And they have stated, passed legislation, you can't close it to the public. It's a public building.
But we can establish security at our doors.
No,
Yes, we can.
no, you can't.
If,
Legislature says no.
if you can, but if you do, you have to have an armed guard, or you have to have, well, an armed guard and a security walkthrough, because some of the courthouses have locked down and did that. Like, you would have
Dickinson
one
County
main
has that currently.
entry
Dickinson
open,
County has
and then
that.
they would have a metal detector that you
So
could
does
walk
Riley
through.
County. I know
What
they-
kind of instant communication do you have? I mean, the nice thing is, not
We have-
even 100 yards away, we have our sheriff station.
We have
So
panic buttons.
you do have a panic button that goes to the sheriff.
There goes one along with the video cameras, so if somebody hits the panic button, they can look up the screen and see.
But you
What's
asked
going
about
on?
the panic button with the guy that gave the proposal last week, and does that just mean there's no upgrade?
No update.
Okay. Well, it is nice that we're so close. I mean, that's one benefit.
But again, it doesn't take much time either.
No.
Right, which is why maybe we should be concerned about our own staff protecting themselves in that scenario.
You don't want me with them. Just saying. I could shoot as a kid, but I'm not so sure.
Are you going to Beloit?
I'm going Friday morning. My son has a baseball game Thursday evening, so I'm going to Salina Friday night.
Salina,
Yes, yes. And again, you can sign up on KS Train if you're interested.
Is any of our law enforcement going?
I sent the information to Mike and Dustin. I haven't heard any feedback from them, but I will communicate with them again, just to double check. So. Any other questions?
I believe so.
Great.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Ed. Okay, Steve, have you got everybody here that you're bringing with you, or you got her? Okay.
My wife, you want me?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Wherever you want.
Okay. I was told you had some questions.
Questions concerning?
Why the hospital can run.
Oh, yeah,
Lincoln Park Manor.
Alexis had asked me.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so I think that you've already talked about this in the past, but with the new situation that we have going on there, it's been brought up again. You know, we feel like there's been a successful venture with the hospital, what you've done there, and the way that they've set up the bond and been able to pay for it, and just the productivity that the hospital has seen seems to be in a very positive light. And since we don't have that same scenario with the nursing home, we were wondering, or there's a faction wondering, you know, could you re-explain, and I know you've explained it to me once, and that wasn't enough for me to grasp the whole thing.
That's okay.
So if you would re-explain the scenario as to why the hospital no longer has long-term care and what that financially means as far as the hospital having anything to do with running the nursing home.
Well, and let me just preface this by pointing out that the county hospitals that operate long-term care units have been generally getting out of that business over the past number of years. Most recently, Republic County Hospital and Smith County Hospitals have both closed their long-term care units. And the primary reason is because of the way we're reimbursed by Medicare. We're cost reimbursed. And so in consideration of what we're doing here in Lincoln County, just back of the envelope calculations, if we were to take over the operation of the Lincoln Park Manor directly, it would cost us a minimum of $250,000 a year of Medicare reimbursement.
Does that mean a reduction in your ability to collect on the critical access portion of the hospital?
Yes, it all comes back to the way Medicare reimburses us. We are what's called cost reimbursed, where Medicare pays us what they consider are reasonable and necessary costs of taking care of patients. And they get to make those basic decisions. We're a very Medicare heavy critical access hospital, so approximately 80% of what we do is with the Medicare population. And that's why it's such a big number. And again, this is just a back of the envelope kind of calculation. We'd have to run a true pro forma to get it, but it would be just cost prohibitive. Because we're already under the gun in some respects. I know under the Budget Control Act of 2011, the Congress basically put into place what they called the sequester, where they cut funding for two different entities that they have control over. Number one was the military, and number two was hospitals. The budget caps on the military were lifted earlier this year. The sequestration is still in effect for hospitals. That costs us annually about $125,000 already that they've reduced our what they would reimburse because of that.
That's from the state?
No, that's from
federal?
the feds. That's from the feds. And then, of course, the way they do their accounting, as I was saying earlier, if we take on administration of the Lincoln Park Manor, there'd be at least another $250,000 gone there. Now, if you want to get into the way the state does its accounting, basically for Medicaid, and I'm not sure what the numbers are, the Medicaid numbers are at Lincoln Park Manor, or what their private pay is, or any of that mix. But they also basically underpay by about 10% of what your actual cost is if you're running Medicaid patients. And even though you're reporting your cost to the state on a regular basis, their reimbursement changes happen maybe every 5 to 7 years. Gradually you get to pick that up, but you're always behind. And with the advent of the managed care organizations, it's gotten worse because they are
making a profit.
because they're delaying picking up new members in Medicaid for long-term care facilities. They review and review and review. And so last time I was talking with people at Lincoln Park Manor, they were something like 6 to 10 months behind, and you just never make that up.
So the hospital, in essence, you're saying you bill at a certain rate for your services, and if the state, or in this case, federal entity that, is...
We get most of our reimbursement from the feds. We do very little inpatient Medicaid business.
Okay.
So, which is where we get the bulk of our income.
Well, and you said
is
80%
from-
Medicare, so
yeah.
that makes sense. So the Medicare reimbursement rate is reduced per service by a certain percentage across the board for the hospital.
Right, already.
Just for the simple fact that you have some sort of long-term care option at your hospital, or affiliated with the management of the hospital.
If we were to pick up the management of
Yeah, this
Park
is hypothetical,
Management,
I'm saying.
yes. Then basically we would not be allowed. There are certain categories of costs. Medicare, again, reimburses your reasonable costs, but they look at your, what they consider revenue generating activities. That'd be lab, x-ray, inpatient, outpatient, skilled beds, things of that nature. We get reimbursed on that. Where they actually calculate that every year.
So-
And so they pay us basically a per diem. And what they do, the overhead associated with operating a nursing home, since you're doing primarily Medicaid and almost no Medicare business, you're not allowed those costs on the cost report. So that's where we would lose. Medicare only reimburses for their patients. We don't get any reimbursement from Medicare for Medicaid patients or from Cross Blue Shield patients or private pay patients or anything of that nature. So
But what you're,
if they would come in with then any administrative, it'd be what are called general and administrative costs would not be allowed. And so that would reduce our overall reimbursement by approximately $250,000.
I'm still trying to understand the funding concept though. What you're saying is each reimbursement that you receive for each individual billing that you do,
Mhm.
x-ray, for patient
Mm-hmm.
B, that amount of reimbursement is reduced for the simple fact that you have long-term care option and you're
Right.
not, does that take away your status as critical access? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, we would retain access, retain the critical access hospital designation. We wouldn't lose that. We would just lose the reimbursement associated with it because of the way they account for our costs. Medicare gets to decide what your reasonable costs are. And so every year, in fact, we're in the middle of that now. We'll have our auditors in here next month and they'll start going over all of our books. They do our annual audit and then they file our cost report, which is reviewed by the administrative agent in this area, which is Wisconsin Physician Services.
And you're
And-
saying that was a direct result of the Budget Control Act in 2011?
No, the sequester was Budget Control Act of 2011. That took approximately 3% off the top. And so, but our allowable costs are part of the regulations from CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
I guess I'm just not understanding the reasoning, not your reasoning, just the reasoning of if a hospital is providing additional services covered by Medicaid in this particular
Mhm.
circumstance, why would Medicare that has no connection to Medicaid reduce its percentage of its reimbursement for any given service for a different patient?
Because a
Because
certain
they're-
percentage of what they're doing now
Yeah.
would then be transferred to something other than what they're
Yeah,
doing now.
other than a Medicare patient.
Yeah,
But I'm saying you can't account for that differently with your staff, having separate staff do
Well-
one, if this staff
Well,
only
but-
works long-term care and this staff only works hospital x-ray lab,
Right.
you're charging 100% of the cost to have that administration and that employee cost dedicated to the Medicare side of it. If you can't separate your
No.
staffing.
No.
Charges or-
No, and it's basically, it's primarily in the administrative and general costs that they would come up with this, because the nursing home already has its own laundry, it has its own dietary, it's got its own maintenance and all of that. So we wouldn't be losing as much as if we were, if we
Providing
actually
everything
went
under
in
one
there
roof, yeah.
and provided dietary, laundry, maintenance and all of that, they would take even more money away, because that isn't going directly to support treating Medicare patients in the critical access hospital.
So we're only talking about administration is where we will be losing the reimbursement, right?
Yeah,
But most of it.
this is a back of the envelope kind
Yeah,
of thing, but
yeah.
yes,
Uh,
I haven't asked our auditors to
Yeah.
run a pro forma on this, but
The-
I did basically when I,
And I guess that would be because we would all be operating under the same board.
right, Yep.
So, in other words, to to make this work, we would basically need to establish a board like we did for the hospital, independent of you.
Right, and then we could contract for services then, and that would not have such an adverse effect on the cost report.
So
But it would have to be, yes, you would have to have a separate not-for-profit board and some things of that nature, and then we contract to provide some services.
and
And
that
then,
contract, would that affect the allocation of costs in for the?
no, that, to the best of my knowledge in discussing this with our auditors and our accountants, no, the way that, it would not.
So if we set up an independent board
Mm-hmm.
and we contracted with the administration, contracted for administrative work from the county hospital,
Right,
you think that would work?
yes.
There could be a working
That-
relationship
yes,
there.
yes.
Because
it-
the county would, or excuse me, the hospital would not be an employee at that point. You're basically,
We would not be employing
Right.
anybody at
you wouldn't
Lincoln
employ
Park Manor.
anyone and you
Right.
wouldn't be an employee of.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay,
What about for billing services?
Yes, we could do, they could contract for billing. Those are the kinds of services, if there were an independent, not-for-profit. Much like, it's not exactly the same with the hospital, because we're considered a municipal creation of the county itself. But if you had an independent, not-for-profit board that was under, the county commission appointed the board members and things of that nature, then we could contract with that board to provide things like billing services or other administrative or even some healthcare services.
Could you give us just a quick few examples of what may work? You're saying billing services, what kind of healthcare services?
Well, the thing I'm thinking of right off the top of my head is we could probably pick up one of the trends that we're reading about now is in smaller communities that the hospital contract with the Lincoln Park Manor or your long-term care facility do the infection control kinds of things.
Nursing.
And, yes, rather than having.
Would that be like RN?
Well, infection prevention is just making sure things are clean and neat and that you're following the aseptic protocol.
So that would still be administration kind of oversight.
Yep.
Are we talking about any nursing services? Because my concern is, we were told that one of the, no, were you gonna say no?
To the best of my knowledge right now, no, I don't think we could do that. Now,
Okay.
we could, under a contract situation, depending on what you're contracting for, we could offer assistance in recruiting nurses.
Here's my take on it. We were told that one of the major expenses for the operation of the nursing home is the salary, the payroll, and I understand that.
Yep. Well, it's one of the major expenses.
For anything.
For any healthcare.
For any business,
Yeah.
really, it is, your manpower. But a large portion of what we have going on here is, I guess they call it, what is that called? The nursing agency. The agency. So, why are we paying for out-of-county people to come and be paid through a separate entity to which they're contracting anyhow for nursing services? And I understand some of them need to be RNs and some of them have to have a higher level of education and performance ability.
We hire agency nurses as well
So
because we
does
can't,
Salina
because we
Regional
can't always
hires.
recruit local people to come to work for us. There may not be a lot of them. They may get offered, Salina Regional is a good example. We compete with them on a pay and benefit basis, and they'll recruit people away from us. It's hard to recruit nurses. They're just hard to find. So everybody uses agency. We go up and down on ours.
So do we have a disconnect between providing, if we're spending this much money to contract those services, do we have some sort of disconnect between providing, continuing education assistance for those people so that
Well,
they know?
I'm not sure what the situation is at Lincoln Park Manor. We provide.
I mean, just generally in
Yeah.
this area, if you have a high school graduate that might want to go to nursing school, and we're offering reimbursement for them to contract
We do
to
that.
come back for 2 years, we're
Yeah.
doing that at the hospital?
Yes, we offer scholarships and
To what extent? I mean, I feel like the
I think
numbers,
it's worked.
yeah, to what extent are we covering their costs for schooling?
Well, I'm not sure. Our scholarships are generally around $1,500 per semester. But I think it's high, you know, I don't know what the tuition at the various places is around here. But we do support that. And then as part of the contract, there's a work relationship. It's like a forgivable loan. You work for us for 2 or 3 years and we forgive it all. It's not really a scholarship. It's more like a loan. Because we have the work requirement with it. But we do that for, we'll do that for nursing, laboratory, radiology, any of those services. If a young person, for medical school as well, if a young person wants that, we offer that. But once the work requirement is done, if they feel
can
like,
leave.
If they feel like they want to jump up and move to Denver, they're going to jump up and move to Denver because it's where the fun is. I guess.
So you said billing and infection control. Is there anything else that?
There'd be a couple of the areas we could do. You know, the other thing is we all need registered dietitians to come in and supervise our menus. We contract with a registered dietitian to come in and do that. But that could be wrapped up and use the same person and do some. There are some things we could look at administratively.
Do you know what they're doing currently for dietitian services?
I'm sure they contract.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have one of their own, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But some of those you're
What
saying.
about human resources?
Yes, we could contract for that as well, and you know, do some things of that nature.
I guess one of the other problems that we continue to have is that skilled care, Medicare skilled care, the fight, but you know, and that was one of the things that I was looking at when we were looking at this, working together, is to make sure that we were getting all the dollars we could, both at the home and at the hospital.
Right.
And certainly that is an incentive to keep people in your facility, and it is also one thing that the nursing home badly needs to generate revenue to, you know. And so, you know, as I looked at that, I was wondering if that could be a win situation for us, where we would.
Well, yes and no. It's a competitive situation when it comes right down to that. That's part of the revenue that we currently generate out of the services we provide to the long-term care residents here. There are some of those skilled days. And, but that's not to say that there's not enough to go around.
Yeah.
Part of it is having the nursing support.
Yeah.
Is one of the things.
Your agency staff, are those mostly RNs? Do you?
We agency staff both RNs and nurses aides as needed. We try to recruit and train our own nurses aides quite a bit. In fact, we've done joint training with Lincoln Park Manor on this. We work with a lot of high school students, trying to get them interested to work as an aide, in that they might, and we see this in general, that they will sometimes go on to get, you know, an ADN and then a BSN and go forward with that. And that's always a good investment in local people.
Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you for explaining
Thank
that.
you. We'll,
I brought back, again, I showed you, I think, once before, a policy on the profile testing, physical capacity profile testing for the employees. And they have assessed each of the positions, come up with where a rating, you'd say, would be, a recommendation for where to accept, like if the job's a 4, maybe start by accepting a 3.5 or above. In order to like not discriminate against like women and things like that in some of the positions, and kind of like a good place to start. Each of them is here in this book, And I did add to each of the job descriptions, a statement regarding work level, like this one here is work level 3, medium work. Applicant must attain a 2.5 or above on their physical capacity profile.
Is this actually, like, did you give us this that's generated by the company, or did you write this?
What I did was I took Saline County's information from the company and a couple others and put it together. And I have sent it to Jennifer. And then I added the ratings in the other day and sent it back to her.
What was the name of that
Yeah.
company? I-
Occupational Performance Corp. And they're out of Salina.
And
So I just,
but we approved them to.
yes.
So why are they not providing this to us? Why are they not giving us our own scale? Why are we making it
Wait,
ourselves?
that's a policy for Lincoln County to have regarding testing.
And I'm
what we
saying,
will do,
didn't
how we
they
will-
give us suggestions
Yes,
from?
they did. And I put them in
I
our
would like to
policy.
see what
They're-
they're actually.
That's what I said, they're
yeah.
here.
Okay, I would
Um,
like to see them.
Yes, and that's why I was saying that I have each of them here, and I included the job description in each one of them, and I highlighted the section that I added regarding
But I'm
the
saying
testing.
you're giving us this. that
I'm giving you
wrote.
this too, just 1 second. I was trying to tell you what it is and what I did, so that you could see what I did. And I have each position marked out, because we're going to need to approve them and sign off on them. So I put them all in a notebook together for you guys to have. Because someone from the county will need to sign off on the job levels. He said if the board wants to do that, that's great. If you guys want to have department heads do it, that's great. If you want me to sign off on them, someone needs to though, in order for us to move forward. He said every county does it differently. It's what you guys would like. So I brought them to you guys to see if you'd like to do that and to go through them. And on each one, I added and highlighted it so it'd be easy for you to see what we added to the description. If you would like me to email you copies for you guys to be able to review,
Probably.
whatever it is that you wish to do.
What was the
bad.
cost associated? Wasn't it like $90 a person for the testing?
90 or 105.
90 something.
It's right around $100 per
Yeah.
person. They offer some other services that might be beneficial down the road, like they could be a collection site for us. So for instance, we could make an offer to an applicant, a conditional offer of employment. We can send them there, they can do this test, and they can collect for our drug test while we're there. That will help as well, kind of
Where are we
streamline it.
currently sending them?
We would still use the same lab that we use through, that used to be TMA, Performance One. It's not Performance One, they changed their company name. It used to be TMHC Services. You see it every month on the billing. They do our pre-employment, post-accident, reasonable suspicion, random testing, and all of that. And a lot of times, either the collector comes out, or they go to the hospital or the health department to have their drug test collected, and it gets shipped to the lab. And they would do the exact same thing. They would just collect it while they're doing this test, and they'd send it to the lab with the company that we already contract with.
At a fee? Was that a
The fee that is there, they send to TMHC, who pays that fee. Like LaDonna charges a fee to draw, and she sends the bill to TMHC, and they pay her for that. So there would be no additional on that unless they do. We leave that company and go someplace else. So there would be no extra cost for that to the county. They would do what LaDonna does. They would just bill TMHC.
Yeah, if you could email that out to us, I think that would be,
Yeah.
give us some time to look
Okay.
it over.
Okay.
Can you highlight the
Yeah.
parts? And
Highlight.
email it?
I can do that. I actually went myself. Dawn went with me, and we went and we checked out the facility, how the testing works, and I actually did the test and went through the whole process that all the employees would go through as well to see what it was like and how it worked and whatnot. And they did a really nice job, and I'm not as physically capable as I thought that I would be. There's a few jobs I don't qualify for. But it was good. It was good to see what they do and how they do it. Wasn't quite what I expected. They do a very thorough job.
I'm still confused because these don't look like they were produced by the occupational performance. Are you saying this is what they gave you?
They gave me, that is theirs.
This is
They
what-
produced that, where they came out and assessed each position and where their work level would be. They produced that. I just printed them and put them in the notebook. And then the job descriptions are the ones that you guys approved, and what I did was added a statement regarding the testing and what level they would need to, and whether it was medium or heavy work or.
Well, what kind of stands out to me and why I question this is, okay, so paramedic, that would be your most highly skilled position in our EMS department. And it's saying, I mean, nothing, everything is in the least required column
It's not least required column, and it's not skill.
It's least percentage of what you're doing.
Okay,
But that's just because.
let's go back. Maybe I didn't explain very well. What they are rating is the physically demanding aspects of the position.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is I'm nervous
Lifting,
if they're saying that the physical requirements for a paramedic are less than that of a deputy. That's a little nerve-wracking to me, because I would think that if you're getting evaluated on your physical capacity as a paramedic, I would think you should be able to kneel, jump,
They have to be able to, yes.
whatever that, right?
Yes.
But it's at the least percentage of their.
No, can you pass back the book? That's why I said maybe I didn't do a very good job. Job level 1 is the lowest level that a position would be, and a job level 5 is the highest a position would be.
Right, and what we have on our sheet says that you have to be no more physically fit to be a jailer than a paramedic. I'm a little bit concerned about if a paramedic is expected to lift a body or be
They
down.
don't lift a body by themselves. If you look through here, they said the work level, it would be considered a work level 4 unless we made some changes into our current policy where multiple person lifts were required. And then it would be a job level 3. They came out and they physically weighed how much strength it would take to lift the cot, to push the cot, to load the cot. They had a person get on the cot as a patient, and they tested what the level would be to lift the cot, to push the cot, to pull the cot. They physically lifted and measured what it would take to move the cylinders and their bags, their jump bags. They measured all of those. And where the line was for them between a job level 3 and a job level 4 is whether or not it was a single or a multiple person lift. If the person, EMT, paramedic, whatever skill level, had to lift, yes, a person all alone by themselves, it would be a job level 4. But where there are a 2-person crew and they have the ability to always call for a lift assist, it could be considered a job level 3.
I guess it alarms me that our truck driver has to be in bed.
And if you look through this is something I will tell you that I had no idea, and I would have disagreed. Opening the 1990 Mack truck hood, 145 pounds of force to open the hood of the truck. That's why theirs is higher. The 2008 Mack truck, only 80 pounds. Lifting of the snow fence is 75 pounds. Changing out the torch bottle, 130 pounds. They lift more weights than I thought that they did. We discussed having the 100-pound. There are times that they're lifting significantly more all by themselves. That's why theirs is rated as a 4. Just the chains to put on the motor graders, they weigh 65 pounds apiece. I didn't realize that their blades and their chains weighed near as much. I didn't realize they needed 145 pounds of force for one person to open the hood of that truck. That's why theirs is a job level 4. I was very, very impressed with the level of testing that they did at each position. And I went with them around the courthouse to do the janitor one. I went with them when they went to the sheriff's department, and they went down to EMS. And one of the staff members from Public Works went around when they did theirs and showed them everything that they needed to look at.
Who was that?
Stephen Weber. They asked for an employee that actually
Does it?
Right, rather than and it just happened that they thought it would take all day down there, or I thought it would take longer. So Dustin and Ryan were in when they went over there, and I just went along with them. And then there was 2 or 3 people at the EMS building when they went there. Yes.
Is this what you're emailing to us, what they
They sent me
provided?
all these, and I can forward all of those to you. And you can even see, I'm only a 3.1. Because they did the same testing for me that they would do for anyone
Just to
else.
get a scale, a base
Just to get a scale. Well, I thought that it would help if I understood more what they do and how they do it and the way that they do it. And it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. There was a lot more involved, and it was a good experience. And Dawn went with me to listen and to hear, and they went through with us everything and breaking down what they do and how they're testing it.
I'm sure the employees are gonna have questions about it, so.
I've suggested to some of the
Better that
department
you do
heads
it.
if they want, yes, and I thought that would help, and I suggested if they wanted to send somebody to try it out, that they could and whatnot, so I kind of, since I suggested it, thought that maybe I should give it a try myself.
See, I'm just still confused. Work level 4 for a deputy is exerting 50 to 100 pounds of force occasionally, and or 20 to 50 pounds of force frequently, and or 10 to 20 pounds of force constantly, and work-related tasks associated responsible for apprehension and restraint of inmates. Obviously, that takes some physical capacity. Duties include removing of animal carcass from roads and highways, as well as animal control of live animals, and must wear personal protection gear and service equipment on a daily basis of 32 pounds. I'm not sure how a paramedic would have less to do than that. I mean,
It's
you
not
remove-
about less to do. They went through and they measured the weights of their equipment, their gear, and they discussed with them how their day functions, how their calls run. Same thing with law enforcement as well.
Yeah, and maybe it's just because we're not really busy, to the point where they're saying they're doing that on a daily
Well,
basis.
and
Because
it's
it
also,
says exerting, under their requirements, it says exerting 20 to 50 pounds occasionally, whereas under the deputy it was 50 to 100 pounds occasionally. Well, occasionally on a body with two people, a body weighs 200 pounds plus. That's 100 pounds apiece on a two-person lift. So that, to me, doesn't make any sense.
well, they roll the patient a lot of times, or they use whatever they use to get them onto the cot, and then it's raising the cot and pushing and pulling the cot, whether it's down an embankment and whatnot. This is their area. They do this. They came out, they tested, they measured, they weighed everything.
The cots are power lift.
And then, yes, and that, they said that made a world of difference. Some of the things that we found when they came, like with the cot, they did show them that if they reorganize how they load the equipment on the cot, it reduces the weight to lift the cot. With all of the weight on the end of the cot, when they have to pick it up and push it in, it was, I can't remember what it was over 100 and some pounds. But then when they showed them if they distributed the weight differently, the weight and the force to lift the cot with me on the cot was less than with the gear.
So who's going to provide training on that?
Brett was right there and they talked about that, and he said we need to change how we're doing that, and he said he was more than willing, and they looked at that and the fact that they could rearrange how they put their equipment on the cot so that more of the weight is distributed on the front end of the cot, because when I got on the cot and they lifted it up, I didn't understand why it wasn't more, because I weigh more than the gear. And they said it's because all of your body weight is more towards your upper body and it's on the front end where the power lift helps get that in. And by shifting the weight and their bags to the front of the cot instead of the back of the cot, then that would reduce the force that it takes for the employee to get the cot in and out of the ambulance. Never did I wouldn't have thought of that. Never would I have realized that. But they showed them that, and Brett said we can change that and we can reproportion how we're putting things on the cot to make that less force to lift and make it easier on the staff. And a lot of times there's always two of them, and sometimes there's a third or law enforcement there. And he said that as long as there's two that are performing the lift, then it distributes the weight more evenly, and it takes less force for the employee to lift the cot or the patient and whatnot. So he did show them ways to do things a little differently, and made some suggestions to some changes to make things easier physically on the employees.
Okay, well, if you email that stuff out to us, we can look it over.
Okay, sounds good, and I'll probably go ahead then and get on and come back next week, and we can kind of go through that. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, you bet.
We're changing next week to Thursday.
Oh, yes, Thursday, same time. Thursday,
Same time, same
not,
place.
yeah, because
Okay.
Monday's Memorial Day.
Okay, sounds good.
Michael, you there?
Morning.
Morning.
Hello.
Manor.
Morning.
Start out with this morning, I have two wage changes. The first is with equipment operator Jesse. He's reached his 6 months, he's obtained his CDL, and we recommend the 50-cent increase for 6 months in meeting requirements. And the other is for Zachgo. He completed his 6 months, he's obtained his CDL, and we are also changing his job title from bridge crew to truck driver.
So you're changing this employee from bridge crew to truck driver,
Correct.
and there's a reduction in
Correct.
pay because, this new pay includes the 50% increase for time.
50 cents an hour,
50.
yes.
I'm sorry, I said that wrong. So what has been happening in the meantime while that person hasn't been serving on the bridge crew, where they got hired at the higher salary rate,
He's been getting the other rate.
the bridge crew rate, the whole time, even though you removed him from the bridge crew?
He wasn't completely removed, he just was not working
Every day.
as a whole group too.
It's my understanding that there was some sort of,
I think that if we're going to discuss specific employees, we need to be in exec session.
okay, I moved to enter into executive session for 5 minutes.
Hang on, let me give you guys the form and you guys use the form.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. That was appropriate.
I think we've said too much already.
Well, no, I mean, the change is public information. I mean, there's a decrease, but there's also an increase for time put in. So it would be, move to recess into executive session for 5 minutes for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel.
Do I have a second?
I want to know who's
we have to have a
included.
second, we have to have a second issue here.
You can say
I would-
personnel.
Right, but there has to be justification. That's the topic, and then there has to be a justification. Reason for job change status, job status change, excuse me. Job status change.
Okay, with who present?
The board and the supervisory personnel, the highway and clerk.
I won't second it until human resources is included.
You can add that.
And you want me to stay?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I will second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I have us going
10 or 2 minutes.
there before they recess. So, or before they
Go back in.
recess again, so you can come back in.
If you want.
Sure.
Or not. Do you want to recall session?
I'm thinking
Call
they're
in
not
to-
gonna come back in anyway.
No, they won't, but call to order again, and then
Or call the meeting back to order.
I move to re-enter into executive session for the same purposes for 5 minutes.
So we go back out again?
Well, she's gonna go, yeah, we're gonna go back.
Have a motion to go
Which-
back into executive session for 5 minutes, second.
Same, non-elected personnel.
You have to give it all over again.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. Move to recess into executive session for 5 minutes for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel, job status change.
Is there a second?
I'll second, but I want discussion.
Have a motion and a second, is there any further discussion?
I guess legally, this conversation has not dealt with a specific employee.
Yes, it absolutely has.
No, it has dealt with 2 employees.
Okay.
And I question whether, is that appropriate, Don, do you know?
Well, the subject matter probably ought to be that you're discussing not just the job status change, but discussing.
Amend. I will amend, because actually the reason why it ended up into 2 people instead of 1 is because there was, I'm questioning the complaints, employee complaint forms,
Okay.
and why we have 1 complaint when there have been multiple situations, but there's only 1 recorded complaint from the department, even though multiple situations exist.
So how about
Complaint, job status change,
Disciplinary forms?
employee complaint
yes,
forms and job status?
yes.
change?
But thank you for the clarification, I do think that's important.
Do we,
That's good.
can we do 2 things in executive session?
Yes, as long as you state the subject matters, you can.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Have a motion to do a 6-month increase on just Zachgo.
I would move to increase just as Zachgo's for 6 months, 50 cents.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. We have a job status change from bridge crew to truck driver for Robert Zachgo. Do I have a motion?
I move.
I have a motion, do we have a second? I will second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Then last week, we interviewed an individual for equipment operator. Through that interview, we feel that he would be a better fit to bridge crew than the equipment operator, motor grader position, and he felt so also. I don't believe we've advertised for that yet.
No.
And would you guys like us to advertise for a set period for that position? Or would you allow us to extend an offer for employment?
How did you come about this interview if you didn't have an
For
advertisement?
equipment operator.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And now you have an opening on the bridge crew. I misunderstood.
And they're all equipment operator positions.
Yes, their equipment operator, one is just,
Assigned to one
Could you
area.
explain what you think qualifies that person for bridge crew more than what you were originally looking at him to do for equipment? Equipment as in motor grader or equipment as in?
yes, as obtaining a route and holding it. You know, I think, based in discussion with his personality, working by himself,
as he would on a motor grader day in and day out would be very monotonous for him. He prefers to have a change of scenery and do different tasks, operate different pieces of machinery. The individual has quite a bit of experience with machinery, not a motor grader though. I believe he's held 2 different positions within KDOT so far in his career, so you know he's got some experience. But
I guess I don't.
it never was specifically advertised for a bridge crew, so I wanted to make sure that would be
So
acceptable.
would we have said that in the ad, Deborah?
We said, that we were looking for an equipment operator, and we did say the motor grader route, we really haven't had a lot of interest in it, and the bridge crew is always very difficult to hire for because it is more physically demanding, because there is a larger variety of equipment to operate and different things like that. And he seemed like he had a better attention to detail, things like that.
How many applicants did we have for this first round that we were advertising?
We interviewed him and another gentleman, and the other gentleman, his family decided not to move to this area from Hayes, and he had concerns about the
Drive.
increase in pay that he would take
Yeah.
to move, and his family decided that a better fit for them was to stay. And he would have been a terrific fit for the motor grader position. He would have been great, and he had a large skill set, and I feel like he would have been a good employee.
Did we have more applicants than just 2, or we only ended up interviewing 2 out of how many?
We did interview somebody for the truck driver.
Been a while.
But yeah,
Well, I don't see, I don't see a problem with us advertising and deciding where to put that person when they apply.
Yes.
But
he did seem like he'd be a really good fit for us. He has good experience with the state.
Past experience, if we have someone that's interested in being on the bridge crew, we probably should go with it because it's the hardest position to fill. It's not air conditioned, it's
He
not
doesn't have
heated.
a direct experience with building bridges,
Yeah,
you know,
but
or repairing
equipment.
bridges, but with equipment, yes. The operation familiarity with those. You know, it's very hard to find anybody that has
It would be, and just my opinion,
experience in our
I
position.
felt like he was very trainable, easily trainable for the bridge crew, and would be a good fit for them. And that with the other position, there would be a lot more extensive one-on-one training that would be required.
I guess my question basically though is, have we messed up the line in our advertisement? That we did not,
I don't think
was it
so.
would be equal
think-
opportunity, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think so. I think we're okay. I mean, ultimately, it's your decision, and if you want us, and we told him that if you guys wanted us to run the bridge crew ad in hopes that somebody did apply, but like I said, they are all equipment operator positions.
I don't have a problem with doing it.
I don't have a problem, I can think it'll work. You have a name?
It wouldn't be any different than hiring him as a blade operator and 2 weeks later transferring him to bridge crew. So,
That seems a little not appropriate.
yeah,
His name is Gregory Ney.
I'd move we employ Gregory Ney to
Extend an offer to him.
extend an offer to him.
do I have a second?
second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then will you come back to actually employ him once he's
Yes.
passed all of his
I
testing?
think that would be the
Yeah.
correct
Yeah.
way to do it.
I'll contact him today.
I don't know if you all received a copy of this letter from the state on the Highland Lake Dam Safety Inspection Report.
I don't
Sent
believe
out
so.
last week. Basically telling us what we need to do to get the dam up to their standards. The
If
inspection.
we choose to maintain the road.
You've contacted the state on the O&E, the ownership and encumbrance that we had the title report done for, and they have not responded back with a yes, no, maybe, or anything.
Yeah,
So we still don't know if we can close the road and not,
Well, we can always close it, I guess,
No, in order to not have to do repairs to the culvert, or the, whatever you wanna call it, under the dam. Or you're saying that might have to happen regardless of what we do?
No.
Well, I think for the time being, we just wait until the state reviews and gets back to us with that title report. And I try to spell in my email, hey, you know, that dam's on the north side of that section line, which is in the Unru's. And they're technically, I would say they're the owners of the dam. And then, so since then, we talked to the head, the water structures engineer, and he says he was swamped, but he tried to look at it. So I think for the time being, we just maybe let him,
Just sit on it.
yeah, and then just see what he says, and then we can maybe talk about it again and then get a plan of action. But yeah, so if you do, I think the county can go cut the trees if they want. As far as replacing the outlet pipe, there's gonna have to be probably a set of plans put together and a permit done through DWR. There's gonna have to be a little bit of work there.
Well, I think that's a little bit more work than I wanna do on somebody else's dam.
It's
Who,
gonna get
who
pricey.
put the dam, who actually constructed the dam?
The landowners in the 50s.
The current landowner, or?
No.
No, it's
It's been sold
It's
at
changed.
least once, or?
It's been a deal.
I'm afraid nobody knows.
Nobody wants to accept
Yeah,
I'm-
nobody wants to.
I'm just gonna read what the Department of Ag said that we need to do. All trees and brush should be removed from the upstream and downstream slopes. After trees have been removed from both slopes, all voids will need to be filled and compacted. The upstream slope needs reshaping to repair areas damaged by wave action. Remove all brush from principal spillway inlet pipe. Replace the 30-inch corrugated metal outlet pipe. Contact Department of Water Resources before any modifications are made, as a permit will be required, and I'm sure cost money. The undercut area on the downstream slope should be backfilled and compacted. All disturbed areas should be reseeded and regularly maintained. But then underneath that, it says that responsibility for a dam safety rests solely with the owner of the dam. But our road that we own goes over it, so
It's
we're
right
still,
away. Well, there never was right of way open, because I believe from the original article, it stated that the farmers would donate the ground if the county would maintain it.
To
But there
own-
never was right of way that I'm aware of. Through all my research, and like I said, this was done in the 50s.
and was that before Wilson?
Wasn't there
Oh,
some
yes.
question about
Long
building it
before
in the first place?
That was in the 70s, I think,
So-
for Wilson Lake.
60s.
60s.
It wasn't really technically approved.
So it doesn't serve the
Yeah,
same
they went
purpose
ahead and
now.
built it anyhow.
Yeah, it made headlines, so I think they went ahead and approved it, and
Brock Mueller has a file that his uncle kept information on this thing from the time it was conceived until it was dedicated. And there's various articles from different magazines and stuff in there, but they're,
So we just basically at this point need to wait for response to your inquiry.
I would think so. They sent us that letter, so I responded and asked for kind of a follow-up, hey, how long is this gonna take? And I never got a response. So
Okay.
I think maybe we'll wait another couple of weeks and I can give
Okay.
them a call.
That makes sense. I had a question for you. I think
Yes, ma'am.
after we had spoken about, we received a letter of concern, the first bridge that the water, when it's let out from the dam at the lake, it's 67.
Yeah, we went and looked at it.
Right. Where are we in addressing that? What do we need to do? What is going to be the follow-up there? I'm still receiving questions. We're in the rainy season, I guess, if you want to call it that. I mean, we haven't been completely flooded or anything,
Right. So we went out and we talked to the Wilson Lake, and asked them, you know, is there by chance we could maybe shut the water off? So the county
To do the
didn't-
work?
To maybe put some concrete, that was the first option we looked at. They said they've
a
constantly
retaining
gotta be
wall?
let, yeah, more like, dig down and put it pretty much like a footing around that scour area. The state said they cannot, they've gotta always let out like 5,000 CFS.
Okay.
So they're
There
not
won't
gonna-
ever be a shut-off of flow.
Yeah, there's always gonna be water there. So, we went back to the drawing table and we've talked about driving some sheet piling in behind the existing piling. And then this, you know, since we're not doing any work down in the channel, we wouldn't need any permits or anything like that, so the county could just, so I think that's what we kinda,
Yeah, we kind of discussed excavating and then driving sheet pile behind where that is rusted away there.
and driving down.
Is that going to address the deterioration though? Because I thought the deterioration was happening where there is no piling. That's
No, the sheet pile, the rusted metal
right.
is the concern, and that's what sheet piling is what that is. So we will drive in basically like a false wall behind it, and that will serve as the wall as that other one continues to deteriorate.
Right.
Just on that one side?
No, we
On
do
both.
both sides.
And then we drive it 6 foot or so below the bottom of the channel, so you can get
Eliminate
extra
scour.
protection. Yeah.
So is that something we can, I mean, what's gonna be the cost on that? Is that something we can do in the near future?
I think it's something we can do. It's
Is that a bridge crew activity?
oh yes, most definitely.
Hmm. Do we need to rent any equipment to do it?
We're gonna try using our vibratory compactor to push the sheet piling in. If we don't experience a bunch of rock, we should be able to achieve that with the sheet piling.
And so how far into the future are we looking to address that?
We're several weeks at the very earliest. You know, I honestly think it'd be best to have a full crew to assist with that.
What's the schedule for the bridge crew look like right now for the next month? What's on their agenda?
Oh, we still got a couple washouts we've been working on up here from that big rain up in the northwest corner of the county. And we got wing wall repair on a bridge up there and a couple other bridges there that need some attention in that area too. And we got an old arch bridge, it's the wall falling off of it and stuff. We're gonna try.
Which arch bridge?
Huh?
Which arch bridge?
It's up,
Is that 80th or is that?
no, it's on, beyond X-ray.
Is it a bridge or just a
It's
culvert?
just an arch culvert.
Okay.
That's all it is.
I have had a couple of phone calls. I think, I wanna say, is that 80th that goes north from,
Ashgrove.
Union? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the railings or banisters, whatever you want to call them, that were up, they're in the in the creek. And I think it's to the point where there's been so much material compacted on top of that structure. I mean, it looks like it's a little dangerous. I mean, anyone could just drive off the edge. I don't know what the plan is
Yeah.
there.
What do you want to do? You want to stop traffic through there? Combines, big track, four-wheel drive tractors, that stuff from going through? Or do you want to leave it like it is?
And let someone fall off the side?
Well, that's the reason it's off, because all the wide machinery and stuff. The bridge is only about 16 foot wide. It's not that wide even if you leave them railings on. They're going through there with dual wheel tractors, four-wheel drive combines. They're running up on that railing, hanging their duals off over the edge to get through. Either you make them detour around, we can build it all back up. That's what you want, make them detour around. We can leave it as it is.
How deep, is it pretty deep?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know,
Typically
more
it's-
than 12 feet probably.
Okay.
15 maybe
Think so.
even. It's pretty.
It's got a layer of rock there, and then the dirt's
Hug
coming,
guard.
Oh, you mean-
window and stuff there where he blades against it each time. But the rock we're on that laid up in the past, but they've all got knocked off, so they can get through there with light equipment.
Okay, so I was saying from the bottom of the channel to the top of the deck, if it's like less than 8 foot, then you could just remove the guardrail. There's been some studies done.
Like I say, all it is just the rock that was laid up on the arch when they built the arches,
Okay.
and it's got
You know,
taken down
it's,
so they
it's
can
a
get
pretty
through
deep
with
rock.
white,
At 12
white
foot or so,
equipment.
yeah. Okay.
But like I say, that depends.
I took a look at the report that you gave us from the Mobile 311 program, and I'm seeing that you have the office inputting some information, then you have about 3 motor grader operators. I guess 2 questions. Are you encouraging all of the motor grader operators to input their records this way? Are you going to continue to just let 3 out of the 10 potential at any given time? And that's one issue I'd like you to address. The other issue I'd like you to address is there a date on these so that we know when it was reported? And is there a column for a check mark, as in it was taken care of? So two things there. Are you going to continue to just let 3 out of 10 people utilize the program? And then is there a way to record an input time so that we know when this was recorded versus, and or a column for finished and completed tasks?
Yeah, those dates are available. Those were just uncompleted jobs at this time. I thought the date was on there, but maybe it's not. So.
I don't have one, but it looks like the columns were kind of...
Yeah, it's hard to...
So that you could read the whole comment.
Yes, if you print out the whole report, it's going to print across 6 pages in landscape. There's a lot of different information that is not really necessary, I guess.
What is that first column? It's like just a random number, it looks like, because the address is on the second column. The first... Oh no, it is an address. It's a number address. Then
Yes.
the road is the next column.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for example, I have East Kiowa, 3 different markings where he's requesting spot graveling, and then 30th Road, another request, 3 more requests for spot graveling. So then how do you track in here? Is there another column that says, yes, we went and delivered gravel to these places where it was requested? Or who looks at this and says, oh, he wanted gravel, you know, these 3 different places? Who looks at that and then makes the phone call and has the truck driver obtain the gravel and deliver
I
it?
try to coordinate that with where we're at, where we're working, where it's gonna be.
So is there a column for...
Completed work? Yeah, you can... There's a completed work within the program. When the job gets done, you go completed work, and then it boots it to a different file.
One suggestion I have is combine these 2 between description and comments, because one operator is putting all the comments in the one, and then you have 2, you know, one operator is putting all the comments in the description.
It should all be in the description, and
So then delete that. Can you modify the Excel spread, or is that, I'm assuming it's like an Excel?
yeah,
Because if you combine those 2, then all the writing is
yes.
perpendicular, you know,
I
to the...
I could probably play around with that and get it to do what you're asking. I see what you're saying.
You have 2, so they can choose, they either write in this column or that column, and then it makes you 2 columns. If you combine them into one, then you could have that completion column so we can see the date. I mean, it would be good for us to be able to track how long it takes when someone requests spot graveling for, because here I see the same request going in, like, for example, we have 407 East Kiowa Drive, which is kind of near where I live, spot graveling needed. And then I have it again, 407 East Kiowa Drive, spot graveling needed. So I
Because
don't,
when that gets assigned, it gets assigned to a couple different people. That's the reason why it shows up numerous times.
assigned,
Yes. See,
Different
when it comes
territories,
in,
different territories, different people.
yeah. So that job got assigned to more than one person, not just the blade guy. It got,
Truck driver.
no, not to the truck driver, but it got also assigned to the other blade guy in that territory. Because a lot of times when they're laying gravel, both the blade guys are there working in tandem, getting that job completed. So therefore, I will assign it to both of them. So that's the reason why it shows up twice.
but it says that if I'm reading this right, the 3rd column is the person who flagged, like it's the person who's inputting the request.
Mhm.
Well, that's the same person twice.
Yeah, because he inputted it the first time. And then when I assign it, it goes to 2 people. You'll look underneath the name of the heading up there, and it'll show the employee that it was assigned to.
It's just assigned back to him.
Yes, and the other one would be to a different employee. 'Cause they didn't,
two people didn't create the request, the same person created the one request.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't it say, if it was flagged, then wouldn't it say it was done by the office then?
No, because I didn't create the job, I am assigning the job.
So basically, we can't tell anything from this until we have a column that says, yes, it was done and the date.
You can tell a lot of stuff by it, but you're not gonna know whether it's been done or it hasn't been done.
Well, I think from the table, the only thing we can look at is when the request was made and when it was completed. I mean, I'm already being told that I'm trying to micromanage by asking questions, so if you don't like micromanaging, then you need to give a report that says, this is what was requested and when, and then this is when it was done.
And nothing, unless something's been done in the last week, none of that has been done.
Which goes back to my...
completed report, I did
We're
not
not
provide
gonna,
a
every time
completed
one
report.
shows up there, they send a request in, it's not gonna be done the next day.
No.
Oh,
It
no
might
one,
be-
no one
it
thinks
might be
anything
2 months,
gets...
3 months.
Well, I don't even know when this was generated, Bob. This could have been from January for all I know. There's no date on it. It was printed April 23rd because we requested it, but I have no idea. I mean, some of these, there was, I guess this is what you gave us as far as a completion list of what, because it says finalized date on this one, on the first page report. Does that mean that is the list of the working jobs that, and then when it says finalized, does that mean they've been completed? Or is that just the request still? Because that's not the same spreadsheet as the Mobile 311. Did you create that one separately?
I believe so, yes. That's a different, shows that it's completed. Yeah. Yeah, I can put the date in there, that's fine, that's easy to do.
And then, so my other question, are you going to continue to have 3 out of 10 operators utilizing this?
That's gonna vary as according to what conditions and things they have out there. If they got, one guy may have a spot driving 3 or 4 places, next operator may not have any. So he's not gonna put anything down.
We need to get going here.
No, actually, we're in my time slot,
Okay,
so
well,
I'm
if you wanna
fine.
give your time
Yeah.
slot, that's fine.
Yeah, I think this is important, and we've been
We
working
got
on
an
this.
engineer that we're paying to sit here that probably has other things he could be doing, so.
Do you have questions for him? That would be interesting if you had some questions for him.
I don't have
Since we're
anything
paying
specific.
him.
I don't have anything specific to ask him, no.
I do.
I'm sure you do.
We have a question about, I have a question, and some people in my district have a question about a bridge concern.
Okay,
65 is north of 67 that you looked at,
okay.
and it was reduced, we talked about maybe 2 years ago from, I don't know what the tonnage was prior, because I never looked, but it's at 3 ton now,
Okay.
which means very few pieces of equipment and or large vehicles can actually get across it legally, so to speak. It would be a large project that we would need the federal funding for. Are you planning on, you know, as you're being active here once a month, are you planning on helping with that type of paperwork? I know, Michael, you've been doing most of it in the past, applying for...
So there's an off-system bridge program, and yeah, we do it. I think we were discussing it this morning a little bit. But yeah, we would do the application for free. Don't worry about that. They're going to probably call for projects in probably a month, so they will send a letter out to the county saying, hey, we're asking for projects for the off-system bridge program. And then it's pretty much an application you fill out. I was meeting with the state at a bridge inspection refresher class, and they said they typically look at the sufficiency rating, need. So I thought maybe, you know, if we do decide on a bridge we want to apply for, we could maybe get some letters of support or something from some of the locals.
Sounds like a good idea.
And yes, they look at that. Sufficiency rating's a big one. And yeah, so it is competitive with all the, the rest of the counties in the state that do apply.
And I think we've gotten 2 years in a row, right? And
Every other year.
Every other
We didn't
year.
have one 2 years ago, just last
2
year.
years ago, yes.
But we
We did.
have one this year, it's
We did.
87.
It's
Yeah,
just now
but
getting
it's-
built.
Oh, I see what you're
It
saying. The
takes,
approval
Yeah,
was
it-
2
yes,
years ago.
Yeah, it takes
It's a 2-year project.
a year for design, a year for construction, yeah, so it takes a little bit after you get selected.
Well, I would say that's one that we really need to look at. It serves a purpose as a throughway to get from any of these north and south roads west. Otherwise, you have to drive to the pavement of 18 to get all the way across down the highway 232, and then you'd have to come back. And
Right,
there-
and you said that one was 65?
Yes.
So we, Michael had me look at it this morning. So we were originally looking at off system 107, just because it has a, you know, the sufficiency rating is a 26.50, which is
Where's 107?
southwest of town here. Was it 183rd? Is that what road that would be?
Yeah.
So we were originally looking at that because it has such
Yeah, it's 107A.
the sufficiency ratings of 26.5, so that one has a pretty good shot of getting selected. The 65 I looked at this morning has a sufficiency rating of 38.90. That may be tough getting it selected. Typically, you know, less than 30 are the ones that do get selected.
So why
Since
do you think it was reduced? Was that through their inspection that it got that it was reduced?
I think it was in the state fracture critical / when they're doing their new bridge ratings statewide. It pulled a random test on that.
Okay. Because you can't post anything less than 3 tons or you gotta close it. Because it was 6,
No,
in the bridge file this one it was 6.
But I'm saying if
And
it still has a sufficiency rating that is borderline, why would they reduce it to the least tonnage?
Right, and
You know,
then
that doesn't make sense.
and then that, since it got reduced down to 3, that is going to affect some of the numbers in the web portal when they run the sufficiency rating calculation. So that may bring that sufficiency rating down further, since it's, you know, so much below the legal loads. So, and then we're supposed to do the bridge inspections or the bridge inspections
This fall.
This fall.
Correct.
So that would all get updated and that sufficiency rating would get recalculated then.
And something that I just briefly visited with Tanner about on it, you know, I think that bridge may qualify for rehabilitation too. As far as the footings and everything, I think everything checks out great on it. The piers and abutments and everything. You know, we may be able to just go in and eliminate the truss part of it. And I believe the truss part's good. It's the 2 approach spans that are built on timber that's actually the true problem with it.
So is that something we could possibly do?
I think it's a little bit beyond,
We could look at it, but
it's
you'd have
pretty
to take
big
the deck
spans.
off, replace.
But when we're talking about, let's say you apply for 107, I mean, that whole entire project is gonna be subbed out.
Yeah.
So we
in the
still
OS
have the
program,
capacity
yes.
for us internally to address something. And last time I asked about 65, it was, oh no, that's gonna be $1.5 million bridge because it's,
To replace it. To
but that's what
replace
I
it
was
would be.
told. You know, I bring it up and it's like, oh, we have to replace it, it's $1.5 million. So I think what we need to do is determine, is
Right.
it fixable without replacing the entire thing? What do we need to do?
But you-
Are we capable of doing it?
You understand fixing it isn't going to get it up to a
Well, it wouldn't be unlimited.
unregulated bridge.
No, but I believe it would, well, I'm not an engineer, I don't wanna say until they plug numbers in, but I think it would get it up around 20, 30 ton easily.
Yeah, we'd have to look at the load rating and then look at those approach spans. And maybe if we can put some
Beam
bigger beams
size.
in, yeah, it'd take a little bit of analysis on that part.
And if it's not something our crews can handle, is it something we should contract
Oh,
out
yeah.
for a reasonable
Yeah.
rate rather than putting it
Rather than
on?
an entire replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could, if you want, we can look into it. And then,
If the board would like us to, we can.
okay, yeah.
You know, I think that particular bridge has the option to be rehabilitated. I think it's a prime character for that, and it also does have a lot of character with its stonework and everything else that's there with it too.
My next question is, when are we going to I mean, we're coming into the summer season, the dry season too. When are we going to look at contracting out some tuck pointing on these stone bridges? And or who needs to do some of the stone repair? Because we talked about this last year, nothing was done. Every single year that we go through this, there's much deterioration on these structures that will not be able to be rehabilitated at all because of the material, the manpower, the skill that's needed for that kind of a structure. I mean,
Yeah, if you guys would like me to, we can, look through the files and find one and go visually look at one, and then we can
I
send
think
it
a
out for
prime
bids.
example is the one on Union. That's a highly traveled road. And that double arch, isn't it double?
The Ash Grove double arch.
Mhm. I think that's a good starting point, at least
Take a
from
look
my
at it.
perspective. Because the deterioration there seems minimal, but it's going to be exponential as it goes on, the water flow through there. And right now, it's just what you call those, wing walls out into the,
Hub guards. Oh,
well, on the
wing
top,
walls.
yes, but
Okay.
also, and one side is much less deteriorated than the other, probably because of how the water flows, but if we don't start to look at that, at least getting a cost in front of us to see what we can afford this year versus next year, et cetera.
We did have a project in Barton County that we had some tuck porting done, so maybe we'll look for some costs and figure out what contractor did it and stuff.
Yeah, we got a pretty good list of contractors to work from here.
And I think if you chose several within an area, it seems like there are quite a few in that northwestern quadrant, that may be something that we can get bids on for someone to do several projects within an area.
Have to look at the funds to do more than one for sure.
Where would that come from? What, the contracting portion of your budget, or where have
No,
you done that?
That would come from our bridge fund. Special bridge, I believe, is where we've been bringing that from.
How much did we have in the special machinery that was, we just spent the 500 and whatever it was, thousand for the 3 new pieces of equipment? Did we have to draw, will we have to draw from, is that completely funded out of the special equipment, or where's that coming from? Do you guys know?
I think most of it's gonna come from the special equipment.
There's a
Others
large,
gonna come
there's a
from
large
capital
amount, we haven't paid
outlay.
for those, right?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, it's 365,000, I think, there in the special equipment, so we're looking about 200,000.
Coming
But
from-
we will
Capital
sell,
outlay.
sell the machinery, so we'll
Yes.
have some recovery
A
from
little bit, yes.
So you're gonna take the remainder from capital outlay?
I believe that's where it'll come from.
And where do we input the money from when we have revenue generated by sales?
It comes into their road and bridge fund.
Their
Just
general.
Fund 11. We have it broke out for budgeting purposes, but
I think that was right. I'll look and see.
You were right.
365, yes, that's what we moved into that fund, wasn't it, Don? It was, moved that in, yeah.
So what will that leave us in the capital outlay?
Capital outlay is a line item, so you'd have to look at those budget reports I just gave you.
He's pulling it up right now.
See 1119 4400 if that helps.
Oh, yeah, that, those numbers really help me.
Yeah.
Here's one that's got $5,900 in it, you think that'd work? There's Spatial Bridge.
What did we, 500, what thousand
Oh,
did we just
oh.
spend?
400. There
I'll have
is
to look for sure. I don't.
no budget for it. Or we didn't build one, well,
Well, here's capital outlay. What's this one?
497,000.
497,000.
And it looks like,
496,000 remaining, it looks like.
And you
Yeah,
said
so-
375, 365 in the other one?
Yeah.
and then they
531, 730. No.
and then they
500 and-
did this, so there would be about 495,000.
Yeah, there's a little more coming out of it too, so.
Cap.
450.
616 approximately.
Did you say 450?
There's more than that, but
We're just rounding it off,
616.
616 total?
I think that's.
Yeah, they'll have it all. Good.
So we'll be taking approximately 150 from 450. So we'll have 300,000 left in the capital outlay after this large equipment purchase, which is dedicated to,
A lot of it gets used for equipment purchase and also picking up the slack on chip seal. Because we usually never able to.
but we won't be spending that whole entire 300,000 on chips,
I don't
chip seal.
believe so.
We already made our equipment purchase, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something we can talk about next time, maybe what we're gonna do with that 300,000 in the capital outlay for the rest of the year.
Got anything else?
I don't have anything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good day.
Michael, will you send John in, please?
What did you say that was, Dawn?
1119, 4400,
4,400, 1119.
and they track by equipment.
Yeah.
And they use it, so you'll have to like.
Morning.
Yes. Hello. Hello.
Morning.
Hello.
So, you ready?
I'm ready.
Ready to roll?
Yeah.
Any day.
We'd like to request an executive session to have a discussion about our finances of our corporation.
I gave you that sheet back, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Dawn.
it's
I
okay,
just put it
yeah.
by your desk. Or on your desk.
The second use, if you
There's one there, but I don't know what you wanna do.
Thank you.
Meeting number 4. Oh, you don't want
We approved these, didn't we? Did we do that?
Yes. Yes, I would say we'd go in under number 4. Discuss the data relating to the financial affairs of trade secrets, corporation partnerships, trusts, and individual proprietorship. I would so move. How long do you think you're gonna need, John?
We have to have a second line there.
What's that?
It would be for financial disclosures from Lincoln Park Manor.
Yes.
We have to have that second justification on top of this.
How long? 45 minutes.
45?
Mhm.
Okay.
Who do you want included? Or
Just right here.
just this? Okay.
Yeah.
Have a motion, to have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion?
I might suggest that if there is anyone else here that wants to participate in any conversation about this topic, that we take public comment first. Because if we're going to be going into executive session for 45 minutes, it might be appropriate to allow any public comment discussion to happen prior to that, not only for our personal knowledge for when we are in discussion, but also just as a time convenience for anyone who may have shown up just to address the topic or has any questions or
Well, I
anything
don't know
like that.
if we know what the topic is other than the financial.
Well, I think there has been plenty of prior disclosure about, requests and intents.
I don't have a problem with taking a comment if someone has a comment. But I don't know how to comment on something we haven't discussed. But
Well, they're not gonna be privy to any of the information we're receiving now anyhow. I'm saying if anyone here has shown up to have any questions or comments about this issue, then maybe they should be addressed now instead of 45 minutes from now.
I don't see anyone. There's no further discussion. All those in favor of going into executive session, 45 minutes. To discuss the relating financial affairs of private corporation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the people present is John and Mr.
And the board.
Mark.
Okay. And, so I'm gonna set my timer for
Yeah.
45.
Yeah, you knock on the door or whatever and let us know.
Okay. After everybody leaves, I'll record the time and I'll run out.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Howdy, howdy.
How are you, sir?
What do you know for the good of the cause?
Well, it rains.
That's just a copy.
That means the meeting's going to get more reach now.
Good to see you.
The last one.
He's not that great.
We'll be back in session. Did you have anything you needed us for, Dawn?
Yes, but Norman was wanting.
Yeah, well, that's what I didn't know if you wanted to.
Um,
Norman, you
The only
wanted to get
thing-
on the agenda, so.
I'd say the only thing that I have is that I need instruction on what we're doing for the services for the elderly check, or we will draw it as is, and then you guys can discuss it next Thursday again. So,
Say that again.
the remaining distribution for the services.
You're
for
about
the
to
elderly-
distribute the second half of the mill levy.
I would say it doesn't go out at this time. Be my own personal.
Can you
view.
hold it in the general fund?
I would need a motion for you
Yeah.
guys to.
I move to hold the second distribution, the mill levy for services for the elderly in the general fund until further discussion and decision by the board.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Norman.
I'd like to address the Web Fund Economic Benefit Fund.
Okay.
This has been in place for 10 years.
Yes.
How much benefit have we seen in this county?
Well, I don't have those numbers.
We don't have any factories that are employing anybody. We don't have any established businesses that have expanded and hired anybody. So after 10 years, I don't think we've seen the benefits from it, what we should be seeing. We need to dissolve this fund and put it into the general fund. If you would dissolve this fund, we would stop a lot of this controversy because there are other individuals that are wanting to use this money for their private use. That's not what it's for. That money was intentionally slated for tax relief. So I think somebody hijacked that fund.
I don't think there was anything there in the wording of that said it's for tax relief.
Well,
I think, we've discussed multiple times that the idea was to have $5 million sitting there. From that point on, it would be used for other things.
that was somebody's personal.
And I can tell you, Norman, that when they refinanced the bonds on the hospital, we had gone up 2 points in our bond rating, and I think they estimated we saved $800 and some odd thousand in interest on the bonds of the hospital because that money was sitting there. So there is benefit to it.
Not economically wise, it hasn't.
Well, I don't know.
The words are economic benefit.
I would say saving $800 and some thousand is somewhat of an economic benefit.
The word economic.
You're saying the interest rate on the bond was lowered because we had an asset in the bank? Is
Yes,
that,
because our bond rating went up 2 points
okay.
We still got
because
too
that
much-
money was sitting there.
We still got too much controversy over this fund. Everybody wants it. And
Well,
it's supposed to be for tax relief.
Okay.
you're
The
gonna
taxes
have
we pay for our
controversy,
property.
regardless of what you do, there's gonna be controversy. Some
I've
people are
been-
gonna like it, some people aren't.
Eliminate it.
I've been told that, I would like to address the nursing home if you don't want to leave yet, Mr. Gableman.
Jim?
I would like to address the nursing home if you don't want to leave yet.
That's what I was waiting to see if you're going to.
I would like to. But just to speak to this topic, I was told that at several public meetings, even before the wind towers were established, that they talked about, okay, we had two options, and one was have a savings account, for lack of a better term, which is this web fund, or directly feed it into the general fund like Ellsworth County does. But I was told that some of the people's takeaway from the public meetings is that we were going to subsidize our deficiency in infrastructure, the roads and some of that bridge issue that we're dealing with, not being able to keep up with, you know. So is that, where am I getting that from? Because some people think that that's what the public discussion.
And I think that at that time,
So-
even we discussed the fact that we were going to bank $5 million of it, and then the rest would be used for other things. And they also set up the other fund where the interest goes to benefit the not-profits and the cities, you know.
That's caused another controversy. How do you pick who gets the interest money?
Well,
That's
there's
the
there's a board set up that people
Exactly.
apply,
The board picks it. How many's on that board? 3?
5.
5? They can pick who they choose, don't they?
Well, having been on the board, I can tell you that most of the time, if the paperwork's in order and stuff, they get approved.
But who do you pick to receive this money? I like him. Oh, I know him.
People apply.
I know they apply, Dawn, but still, the perception is there that something is wrong.
Well, and I've had people comment, why are we giving money to tax-funded organizations? Why is that money going back in, you know, I can't think of a good example right now, but we have had plenty of tax-funded organizations apply, and they receive, it's like a second tax subsidy. You know, it's not just for a nonprofit use where it's a private fund where they do their fundraisers and they want something additionally. A lot of times it's already an entity surviving off of tax money that then gets a subsidy, an additional subsidy.
I think that's just the nature of the 501c3 for one thing. The Sylvan Senior Center just got $800 to buy a lift chair. They get tax dollars on top of that. So does
Well,
that
they haven't.
mean?
They haven't this
Ideally.
year.
In our prayers.
They haven't in a year, but
That's
a year.
that was their choice for the most part.
No.
They didn't want to submit the paperwork.
That's wrong.
They didn't want to submit
Don't,
the
you're
paperwork.
going down the wrong road,
No,
Terry.
I'm-
Not true.
Yeah, that's true. In
No,
fact, you even
it's
stated
not
that you
true.
wouldn't accept any money from them, so.
that doesn't. They didn't say they didn't
But
want the mill
regardless, back to
levy.
what we were talking
Well,
about.
the reason we don't accept money from them is because they don't fund us the money that we deserve.
Back-
Not because of, we don't want to hand in paperwork. We've handed in so much paperwork, you wouldn't believe it. That's not the issue.
Back to what we were talking about though, they are tax funded basically for the most part. But they applied for, there was another thing they applied for that was put on hold, I don't remember what it was, but they did fund them. So does that mean that Sylvan Senior Center, because they are partially supported by taxes, can no longer get web fund stuff?
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying there are quite a few tax subsidized entities that apply for that money and
most of
continue to
them
get
are,
it.
most of them are 501c3s of some kind. Or, you know, sometimes, some of it's gone to some of the cities. Beverly's got some, I think Sylvan's got some. I can't remember who all through the years has gotten money out of that, but
This is another issue I'd like to address, and it was brought up here at the meeting previously. On these box culverts, you're removing the bridge rails. Or you're building new ones without bridge rails. I can show you one out in Valley Township. You built a brand new one. Now it's a safety issue. But a mile north of where this one is, they took the bridge railing off to accommodate a farmer.
well, there are some railings that are part of the structure of the bridge and there's some that aren't.
That's on an FAS road, and that should have never been removed because that has federal money.
I think the engineer just described a scenario this morning because he was asking me how deep that bridge is on 80th, I think is the right route. I might be wrong. And he was saying they've had some discussion at the state level about an 8-foot drop or less. There can be removal of the railings. If I'm interpreting what he said, but like that, for example, there are no railings on this one that's at least 12, I'd say, maybe 10 to 12 feet, if not more.
But I think most of the ones that have been removed to benefit to where they can get implements across them, or combines across them, is the reason that they've been removed.
They got a removable header quick attach.
Is that the
They
one I'm
also
talking
have
about?
discs that won't fit through
North and south.
16 foot, and they have other equipment that won't fit through 16 foot too.
So this is gonna become a political issue because it's being questioned now in Topeka. Some of this equipment is so big,
Getting bigger.
causing traffic hazards.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Alan, but, you know, are we gonna, Jim, you gotta start taking your discs down, taking it apart and move it down the road now. Can't move it complete anymore.
Norman. He meant Norman. It's okay.
I'll let you and Norman argue about that one.
You wanna rent my ground? Hold up your disc.
Did you have something you wanted to say, Jim?
Yeah, do you want to come up and talk? Or? I assume maybe you came because we had Lincoln Park Manor on the agenda.
Yes.
And would you like to update us as to any discussions that are ongoing between your newly forming? You're not a nonprofit, right?
That's correct.
Yet. But you're still. The board is still having meetings and.
Yes, we had a meeting last Monday, and we were waiting on Mr. Grace to tell us what his financial situation is.
Have you received that information yet?
We have not. He sent me an email last week after our meeting. He was at the meeting, indicating that after he talked to you all, he would speak to me, but he hasn't.
Okay.
I have no meeting set up with him yet.
Well, and he didn't come. He didn't end up coming last week, which.
That's correct.
Okay, so he came this week, and we did have an executive session to talk about financials. I guess just to update you on a little bit of our discussion this morning, we had Steve Granzow in, and he re-explained to me and explained for the viewers why the hospital is unable to really financially support a long-term care and or the nursing home itself. But he did say that we would have the ability to contract some services through them, and that may be a benefit to us if if the hospital was able to provide some of those services at a lesser cost than what they're already being contracted for. Some examples were billing, infection control, dietitian services, and human resources. They already have those in place there, and I think he's suggesting that they might have the time and or capacity to take on a little bit heavier workload for that additional contracted fee.
But it would have to be under contract. They can't just do it.
I think our concern at this point as a board, what we've reached as a consensus is how do we transition to a nonprofit operating the nursing home as opposed to continuing this lease that we have with the for-profit corporation. And in that transition, there are a few hang-ups. We talked about the Medicaid, Medicare billing transition. You know, I don't know what your plans were for that. Do you have anything to give us as far as a lead on how you would or would not transfer licenses, the billing information, so that continues to go undisrupted?
We have plans, but again, until you and Mr. Grace work out the financial problems between the two of you and his financial problems, there's nothing we can do. I can't, I can talk to people, but I can't make promises. I can't execute contracts. I can't do anything until we have a dog in the fight. And right now, we don't have a dog in the fight.
So what it looks like, though, from the proposals that we've discussed in the past month, it really looks like 100% of the upfront cash, let's call it, that you were requesting goes to pay off debts, accumulated accounts payable, et cetera, from the current owner. In that scenario, there's no working capital for a new oversight committee or board or operator. There's no working capital to make up that deficiency. They're losing money. It was reported to us previously about $20,000 a month. So we're concerned about that.
Again, we don't have any of John Grace's financial information except that has been provided to you on the July of 2017 and a March of 2018 accounts payable. And we of the board have sat down, and last Monday we went through all of the monies, the financial status as we see it, with the information we've been given to us. And we've done some work, and we believe that by scrubbing the numbers and doing some stuff, we can, one, take care of keep the staff as it exists now, continue the good care and increase the care of the patients. To do that, we need $175,000 from the county that you're now spending on your maintenance. That's what you're spending a year on maintenance.
We have $120,000 allocated for this year.
He's probably including what should be the rent money in that.
That's right. We would like to have a rent-free lease. We'd like to have a building, but we'd take a rent-free lease or a long-term lease. We would completely redo the way that the billing is done. You may or may not use the Medicare and Medicaid billing because they have the company that they're using now is very reliable and it's used by a lot of other people. But as far as the payroll, all the other accounts other than Medicare and Medicaid, we have a completely different solution for that.
What would that be?
Well, I'm not really able to tell you the names of who we would like to do, but we have an accounting firm that's old and established and has done extremely good work for a lot of people in this community.
You would want to contract to an accounting firm to take care of your accounts payable and your accounts
That's correct,
receivable.
and they don't bill on an annual basis. They deal on billable hours, which is the way you ought to be doing that stuff.
And you're saying right now they're under contract for a yearly fee regardless of the income level?
Apparently, it's what it looks like. And they're way over what we project we need for that.
Well, these are the types of services we were just discussing with Mr. Granzow as
Yep.
far as the billing and being able to contract for that kind of thing. Has your board had any discussion with him?
No, but we haven't discussed with anybody because we can't until somebody says, okay, we want you to provide us with a formal bid. But before we can give you a formal bid, Mr. Grace has to pony up the money that he owes. We can only take it if we buy it on an asset basis. We can't buy it on a share basis. We've got to have a zero balance to accounts payable before we can even consider doing it.
What are you considering an asset basis? What are the assets?
If you buy shares, you buy the debt and everything else. We're not going to buy any debt.
Okay, so what are you considering their assets to be purchased?
Everything except what you own.
Do you know what that is, or
Well, we have your inventory of the lease.
do you have any idea what that number may be as far as a purchase for assets?
Yeah, we do. But we got to get Mr. Grace out before we can do that.
I mean, but he would have to agree to the terms of the purchase, so he would have to agree on the amount, the dollar amount.
He's got to pay his bills before we will enter into any negotiation. We cannot negotiate that whatever he owes, and I don't know how much he owes, but it's some number around $600,000 probably, but I don't know that. And, you know, I can't, my board will not enter into a contract and try to make money when he already owes $600,000. We're talking, the board is a nonprofit, we're talking to break even, and that's our whole goal, is to break even, continue the existing care that we have and the existing staff, and we believe we can do that. But you guys gotta decide how he's gonna gracefully exit the scene.
But your intention is to not make any changes, no administrative changes, anything like that. You're just looking at contracting different service providers for some of that.
All of it.
I mean, are you looking at soliciting for new companies with administrative license?
No, that's the license now, again, that's part of John Grace's. He has the license now. If he doesn't change that license over, if he withdraws and gives you a 60-day notice or whatever, and he's gone, and doesn't give us the license, you're in serious trouble here.
Have you done any searching as far as what it will take to get relicensed there? And what
Take
are,
about 90 days.
to get relicensed for the state to come out and issue a new license to a new company?
It costs money to do that,
Do you know what that costs?
$2,200.
Paid to the state, paid to KDADS?
No, you need to get to the administrator's license requires 480 hours at a community college. Cowley County has a very nice one. It's a 1-hour course on finance of a nursing home and 13 credit hours, which is where the 480 hours comes in, under the tutelage of a nursing supervisor and administrator.
Mm-hmm.
And that will take, well, however long 480 hours takes. Then you will get a nursing, an administrator's license for a nursing home. You gotta have some,
I mean, are you planning on soliciting to potentially hire someone with an administrative license to come in and operate your newly purchased?
we don't know until he says you can have this license may stay in place or
Well,
won't.
John Grace doesn't have that license. Remember,
The nursing home does.
well, the current administrator of the nursing home has a personal license.
That's right.
So we're talking about two licenses. The one belongs to the person who's the
That's right.
administrator. The other one belongs to the business
Yep.
who rents the facility.
Yep.
So you're saying it takes about 90 days to get that business relicense, a new license potentially?
You know, it depends on a lot of other things, but we can't start that procedure until we know what the situation is with Mr. Grace.
I know, I'm just asking for information sharing so that we have a good idea of how this procedure works no matter what. I mean, I think we have talked earlier this morning about with the hospital, you know, if the county is going to, number one, stay involved and get, it looks like more involved if this is all to transpire, we have to have a similar setup to the hospital.
Well,
We can't just
our
give
goal
money.
is to get the county out of the business completely. That was our stated aim, is to remove John Grace from the business and remove the county from the business. That's why we formed Lincoln Manor Incorporated Board.
Mhm.
And as far as we see our mission, our goal is to, we'd like to have you give us your stuff over there, and if you don't, then we're gonna execute a long-term lease, and you'll have no further management influence over that nursing home except over the building. And we think you really ought to get rid of that building and let Lincoln Manor Incorporated take over the whole thing as a neat, clean deal. You don't like being involved in the administrating of the nursing home. You never have. It's always been a pain. And we think this is your opportunity to get out of it, so if it's possible, you ought to get out of it. That was our stated goal when we formed this, and that was what we were given as a direction to go into. Get the county out, get Mr. Grace out, have a nonprofit with board members from the local area. And we've done that, and we're just waiting on you guys and Mr. Grace to decide what you're gonna do.
So are you saying that you think if a nonprofit were to operate it as is, it would begin leveling out expenses because the for-profit company has its own additional expenses?
Lots of them. You take a fine-tooth comb and you go through that list you got.
So maybe we need to call for an audit if the county's going to be investing money?
Well, I don't think you can do that if you want. All we
Well,
want
they
from the
don't have to
county is-
participate, obviously.
It's a one-time $175,000 maintenance line of credit, and that's what you're spending now for maintenance and repair. In fact, you have a lot more than that this year and the next 3 years. You have that in your budget. We just want one $175,000 payment from the county.
Okay, wait, I'm writing this down because this is a little different than the last time we talked because
It's still up there. We've just given up on the $450,000 or whatever it is to get John Grace out of it.
that's what I'm saying. You're saying that the new concept is your board still wants to take it over, but you want working capital. You're not asking for the rest of it, which was to effectively purchase
Pay
the
off
company
his-
that was in debt,
Pay off his debt.
pretty much. And how far do you think that 175,000 is gonna go at negative $26,000 a month?
Well, that negative $26,000 a month, you better off debt too.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was kind of concerned about not having an audit to begin with.
Well, you had one back in July. and
Did
that-
you read that, or were you
Yes,
here when I
did.
read
That's that's the only real figures I have.
Did you read the disclosure on that audit, though?
That's a standard disclosure.
It's not.
everybody.
It's not. I've checked into that.
In any case, those are the best numbers we have. And plus the March of 2018 numbers, and we presume that. The March 2018 was a submission to the state for nursing home board, whatever it is, I don't have the exact title. And I presume those numbers are accurate and truthful, otherwise the state would be down. So that constitutes pretty close to real numbers, I think. And that's what we have used as the basis of our financial planning. And we believe that you can make a little money, maybe 40,000 a year, as it's now structured, without doing a whole lot more by eliminating a lot of stuff that we think are duplication and unnecessary. We would see no change to the care, no change to the staff. We just want to change for the administration stuff and the financial stuff that's going on. I provided those numbers to Mr. Grace last Monday, by the way. He had those in his hand.
So what are you proposing would be the incentive for him to relinquish ownership and operation of that facility as is, without you making the same offer to buy out his
Somebody's
debt?
got to pay his debt. And my board has no money.
Mhm.
And so it's between the county commissioners and John Grace who's going to bring all his debt up to zero. And until that's done, we're wasting our time talking about taking it over.
Do you want to take questions?
Well, I have a question because some people are under the impression that you are considering, the board is considering keeping John Grace and Kristen Robinson on as administrators. And we don't really understand why, when they've run at $600,000 in the hole in 1 year, why we would want to choose them as administrators going forward. It seems like the license issue could be overcome with a different administrator or a different management. And we just wondered where your board stands on that question.
Our guidance from the start has been to relieve John Grace of any responsibility and influence in Lincoln Park Manor, get the county out of the business of Lincoln Park Manor, take it over with a board composed of local board members, and have a 501c3. And that's, we're meeting that. We believe that the current staffing, Kristen Robinson and all the other folks over there, are an asset. Kristen's been there for 13 and some years, and if you look at the changes in the nursing home since she's had that in her 13 and a half years, it has improved virtually every year.
Except financially.
Financially, it hadn't been her problem. I mean, it has been her problem. Care is where she's good at, and we believe that by providing the financial part of that, we can take care of that.
Wasn't that what was supposed to happen with this last ownership change? I mean, it was the same exact scenario as what you're explaining now
That's
last
right.
year,
Yep.
But it didn't.
but nothing changed. So I'm just wondering I mean,
How is this different?
you're kind of leaving us to assume that it's all the new owner's mismanagement of expenses, but we saw the same thing with the prior owner who still works there. I mean, we're kind of layering up these previous owners who have had something to benefit from the transition every time. Regardless of relinquishing ownership, the person that was there still maintained a job. And I don't know what's supposed to happen with the new owner. I was told by you, actually, that he was going to be contracted to continue to provide services for at least an amount of time. That's different now?
There's a transition. There's either 90-day or 180-day transition period. And that would require a contract, but that's a transition just to change over all
The
the
license.
financial stuff, the license and everything else. You can't just wake up one morning and he goes away and you pick up the ball and try to build people and do this and do that to clean it. There's gonna be a transition period. But he is not, after that transition period, is not going to be involved with our board.
But wasn't part of the reason John Grace came in was because of financial difficulties from when Kristen Robinson was running the nursing home?
I wasn't involved in that, you'll have to talk
Yes.
to the board.
Yes.
Yes, that's true.
So there were already financial issues before he ever got on board, and that's why I think why a lot of people are concerned with the idea of no management change and no administration change.
Yeah, would it
We
be your
envision-
intention
We
to,
envision a structure that has an administrator, a chief care officer, and a chief financial officer. And those three people report to the board.
but if you're only
Chief.
gonna make an additional 40,000, how are you gonna pay two more positions that are both, I mean,
We're
more
not
than,
paying those positions,
that's gonna be volunteer position?
not entirely. The chief care officer would be the person in charge of taking care of the patients and all the patient's needs, and that would be Kristen. She's good at that. If you look at all that she's done in her care business, take away the financial, she has a superb record in that nursing home. So what we need is a chief financial officer, and that would be a person or a company that we would contract with to do the billing, a separate company to do the Medicare, Medicaid. So yes, there would be an additional expense, but that additional expense would certainly be offset by the savings that that person would bring to us.
What was the third one?
Chief care officer, financial officer, and
But administrator.
the
And
administrator.
under that, you'd have a chief care officer and a chief financial officer. We see the administrator and chief care officer being the same person, Kristen. And we see the chief financial officer being the person we're gonna use to run our money business. Those people, all three of them, report to the board at least monthly and more often if we need it. The board meets 2 times a month. We
Two
don't
people,
intend-
3 positions, is what he's saying. No, oh, you said one person is gonna fill 2 of the 3.
That's right.
You're making a pyramid here,
Yep.
and you're one person.
Exactly.
So does that come? Yeah, that comes with a additional responsibility. Comes with incentive.
Of course there is,
Hmm.
but not to the board because we're nonprofit.
No, we understand that. I think.
And the chief financial officer would be paid on the billable hours rather than a salary. You work, you get money. You don't work, you don't get money. That's a
It
new
sounds to me
concept.
like you're setting up a reward system for the same issues that weren't being productive, but that's, I mean,
Such
that's
as,
by creating new positions
no,
and.
we're not creating new positions. We're calling a chief financial officer something that now has 4 different companies contracted to do. If you look on your report, you'll see one of those companies gets $88,000 a year for doing whatever.
The billing.
That's right. That can be done for probably
Is that-
close to 20.
The company that's doing the billing now for Lincoln Park Manor, is that a company separately owned by John Grace?
I don't know. I have not looked at those boards because it doesn't make any difference because we're not going to use them.
Just wondered. We had a question, I think.
Did Kristen run this in 2016?
Yes.
Well, what I looked up on the computer, of course, I know the computer's not always right, but state level, they failed in their nursing staff because they didn't have enough nurses on, enough help. So you're saying that she does a good job on the nursing stuff, is that
I don't-
part of that?
I don't know that I ever heard if they failed an inspection because they didn't have enough nursing staff.
If you look on the
It's true.
computer, it's on there.
Because you
But
have
then, like I
to,
said,
I wouldn't look on the computer. I'd like to see a written documentation from a state office.
They have the state, you can go to the
It is
state
the
website.
state.
They have the state
I'm
reports.
not aware of that.
Yeah. The concerns that have been brought to me with the whole scenario is that we are potentially subsidizing, funding, fronting, investing money, county money, into a situation where from that point on we really don't have any oversight. So if we're going to maintain oversight, there needs to be county involvement long term. If we're not going to maintain oversight, we're not really soliciting for professionals. We're just kind of knocking on doors of neighbors. And in that scenario, we're not seeking out people who are in this business. And, you know, the last time this transitioned, John Grace claimed to be a professional. And if he wasn't able to make it work, there's kind of like an unstable sense of how that's ever going to happen. And in fact, you know, I'll just use Grant County as an example because I've talked about it recently, but they, in a small county, actually larger than ours, they have a population of, I think, about 8,000. They were subsidizing their nursing home to the tune of $1 million a year. And so what they finally did was they consolidated the business and the building into one sale, and they solicited for buyers and they sold it totally so that they would stop subsidizing it. I don't think this board has a consensus on doing that in particular. I'm just bringing it up as an example. But
I think this board needs to decide, are we gonna maintain control of the nursing home, or are we gonna get out of the business? That's the decision you have to make. And once you make that decision, then the rest of this can kind of go forward. And I'm in a quandary because I don't know which way you guys are gonna go. If you're gonna keep strings on the nursing home, then you probably ought to set up a nursing home department underneath the county and run the damn thing.
I think the concern is that it's gonna be sold to a real estate investment firm like the one at Wilson and all the others were, and they're gonna run it for a year and shut it down.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to avoid with our nonprofit board. We think we can take it over and make it work. Now, my board has got some pretty serious members on it. It's not a pickup group.
But I think he's saying there's still the concern that your board could end up selling out at some point. Not about what you do with the money. I mean, it's a nonprofit, you have to dissolve, but just that risk still exists, I guess. It's my understanding that other counties that maintain ownership of their facility, they do rent to a nonprofit who then contracts to an operator, an actual operator who does all of the facilitation, not like you're kind of suggesting that you have all these individual people that are going to fill all these roles, but it's not really a business. You're kind of a group that's going to partition out these responsibilities. It's my understanding that the other counties, they rent to the nonprofit then employs an actual operating company. That's what I've been exposed to. Who's your operating company then?
We don't have a company, we have an individual.
That's what I'm saying.
Would you feel better with a company? That way you can increase your expenses, you can spread the joy out to everybody, and you won't get anybody in charge.
Well, I think
We're not gonna solve this today,
No,
guys.
you're not. But
There's some negotiations on both parts with Mr. Grace, between us and you guys. I think we're still in the negotiation area, and I don't think that,
well, that's, you can't.
Well, and I think if we're going to continue to own the building, I would like to see a public referendum to find out, are we going to continue to subsidize this? Because there's nothing to stop your board from coming back here next year and saying, we haven't made our bills, we need a subsidy of another $250,000, and the year after that, and the year after that. So if we're going to continue to subsidize, I think that needs to be a decision of the taxpayers. If this board individually makes that decision, it's on the board. I mean, I guess we don't have to be reelected or we can be praised for it. But I would like to see the public have a say on the continuation of the subsidy.
How long are you gonna allow Mr. Grace to operate the way he is now?
We have given him his notification that he is in violation of the rent payments.
But how long are you gonna let him operate the way he is now?
He only has a certain amount of time to rectify that financial default to the county, and then we have the ability to withdraw from the lease. If and when that happens.
But you wanna put an election in, And that election cannot take place for a goodly period of time, way past his deadline. Your referendum, you wanna have a referendum. That
I would
means
like to see
You gotta set
that.
up the election, all that stuff, that's gonna occur way after his deadline. You need to wonder what's gonna happen to the nursing home. There's a lot of uncertainty.
Well, my suggestion is, I think the county commission needs to be in contact with the state. I think we need to contact the state, get a point of contact, an individual person who deals with this on a regular
And
basis.
again, you're talking time. I don't know how much time you have.
Well, that's not a question that any of us can answer. That's only someone from KDAD's responsibility to convey to us what our limitations are, what our options are, what they will do for us. You know, do we have this lull in management? Is there something as far, you use agency nurses to come in. Are there agency nursing home operators? I'm sure there probably are.
But still, you need to find out how much time you have, because at some point in time, Mr. Grace can say, I'm done.
I understand that.
And if he says, I'm done, you're losing your nursing home.
Well,
There's no immediate fix that can come in
This-
behind him saying, I'm done, and pick up the reins of that nursing home the next day.
that's why we need to be in contact with the state. We don't know that. We don't know if they provide relief, some sort of temporary relief, so that we're not the only ones who've ever experienced
I
this.
understand
And
that.
for us to think that we have to internally interpret the future process, that's a mistake. I think that we just really need to have a point of contact, find out who the professional is at the state level that can guide us. We have no guidance right now.
But I think you need to work with John Grace and get his problem solved.
I don't think it's our responsibility to pay anything for him. That's my personal
Then you need to tell
view.
him that and say, you gotta pay your bills.
Those are his bills, no matter where he goes. If he leaves the state, they're still his bills.
And if the state comes in and, as you wish, to take it over, they're still gonna be his bills. They didn't pick it up either, are they?
Correct. And
And
if
so
they don't
therefore-
ever become our responsibility, and at any point, never do they become our responsibility.
How are you gonna resolve that issue? Somebody's gonna have to pay those bills.
He has to pay them.
But if he can't pay them, or doesn't pay them, or declares bankruptcy, then what happens?
If I don't pay my electric bill, does it become your bill?
I understand that, but we're talking about the nursing home, and I envision that the nursing home is going to close pretty damn quick unless you get something resolved with John Grace.
This always seems to be the final topic when we have this discussion. It's that the nursing home is going to close. And we haven't even begun to explore the options. We've never solicited for operators, we've never solicited for purchasers. We're sitting around saying to one another that it's going to close if we don't internally take care of this problem. We don't have the capacity internally to take care of this problem. We need to reach out beyond our borders and find out what can be done, not just to one person. If I had known that when John Grace came to this community, that everyone would jump up and just be so ecstatic about the first opportunity for someone with an idea, I would have set up 6 people to come at the same time and give 6 different proposals. I had no idea that this area would be so eager to have one person's new idea and jump on it, whether it made financial sense or not. I had no idea. If I knew that, I would have simultaneously brought things to the table to give a choice. Now we're in the position where we don't find ourselves having choices because we jumped on the first opportunity, whether it made sense or not. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board and find out what our choices are.
But I think we need to be reassuring the people in the nursing home, because if they get restless and they look at all of the disagreement and uncertainty going on, they're going to take their mother or father and start looking for another nursing home. And if you resolve this 30 days after they move to Presbyterian Manor somewhere, they're not going to come back.
Well, that's been going on for 2 years. That's not just in the recent
But
transaction.
it could be an open door here pretty soon, because the uncertainty is running rampant over there. I have a message from a lady over there that I shared with John and Kristen, and they seem to be uncertain about their future, and that's not good.
I think that's been for 2 years. That's been the feeling there. I mean,
Well, then we ought to be reassuring them that we're going to solve the problem, and not continue to say, we don't know what we're going to do, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do something else, because that does not solve your reassurance at the nursing home. And those people are going to start moving out. I would if I had my parents over there, and I've had 6 of my family go through there. And I am really concerned that the uncertainty and not knowing what's going on is going to drive them out.
well, there's been uncertainty in the propositions that have been offered to this table, you
I
know,
understand
so.
that, but we ought to be able to tell them that we have the capability and we are gonna solve it. And I
Well, we
don't
are
think-
going to solve it, but I think we
I
need to
don't
reach
think
beyond
they-
our own
I don't think they
capabilities.
feel that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm just arguing, I'm not.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Our board is set up to try to solve a problem, and we are ready and able to do that as best we can. But we can't do anything until somebody pays the bills over there.
But you don't have any investment capital to bring to the table. You're requesting all of your 100% of your funding from the
Yep.
county. Okay,
No, all we want is $175,000,
okay.
but yes.
I wrote that
we do
down.
that.
You changed it from four.
That was always
475
been
to
there,
175.
but we have given up on paying John Grace's bills.
Okay.
That'll be sure.
I move for Lincoln County Board of Commissioners to contact KDADS and seek information on the options for a nursing home.
Okay, you wanna contact KDAD and have someone come in here to talk to us about it, is that what you're
Correct,
talking about?
correct.
I will second the motion. Is there any further discussion? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Uh,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one thing before we dismiss. I will not keep you long, I just want to make an announcement. I serve on the Juvenile Detention Board of North Central Kansas in Junction City, which Lincoln County has been a member since it was formed. Due to the change in law a year ago on putting juveniles in detention centers, we found our facility had some extra beds, and so we are moving to create a secure care center. It'll be serving males 12 to 17 who have chronic runaway behaviors and have been adjudicated by the courts as child in need of care. This 24-hour, highly structured and safe environment allows male youth to address behaviors in a safe, organized setting. Our objective is to return the youth safely to their families and communities by decreasing the likelihood of future runaway episodes through skill building and improvements in decision making. The child can only be placed in this facility by the judge. It is a 60 days. They can renew those 60 days up to 3 times, so they could spend at least 180 days. This center will be in one side of the juvenile detention center, and the other side will be continued to run as a juvenile detention center. We have, I think, 28 or 32 beds. There will be 20 of them for juvenile detention, and I think there will be enough room for maybe 12 youth to be in the secure care center. As a member of that organization, Lincoln County will have priority to be placed in there if there are surrounding counties that are not members. We have been running a census, we're running a census in the 20s 2 years ago. Our census now are dropped to about 15 because of the change in the law. And so we felt that we had this extra space. This will totally be, right now it looks like the state will pick up all the costs for keeping these children or these males in the secure care center. I guess I would point out that Lincoln County pays a yearly fee, and that guarantees us, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. Oftentimes we don't use those days. The cost is running about $175 a day for youth down there. The state, if they're under state order, the court, they pay $120. And it's been that way since I've been on the board for the last 10 years, 12 years probably. So just wanted to make that announcement. We hope to be up running by August 1st. I will have some flyers, I think, within maybe next month when I meet. They will give flyers to me that I can put out in the county. I have one here, but there needs to be some changes made on it.
Where's that facility at?
It's in Junction City.
In Junction City?
It's, if you're familiar with Junction City has a courthouse, and it has law enforcement, city police, and we have a little corner on a block down there that has this facility in, yes.
I'll just briefly do the correspondence that we received today I'm writing to inquire as to your response to my letter presented to you, date April 23rd, 2018, in regards to the request made to provide street signs at the corner of 181 Highway and Union and 80th and Vine, as well as requests to repair bridges that are located on 80th just north of Ash Grove and Double Arch Bridge located on Union just to the east of Ash Grove. As of this date, no signs have been placed or repairs made. There's a description of the business, Barnyard Weed Warriors, and the need for those. I'm just going to jump down here. I'm requesting a written and detailed plan along with a timeline that explains when the signs will be placed and what plans have been developed for the two bridges. I would like for this plan to be sent to the address listing and the heading within 10 days of this being presented to the commission. Sincerely, Mary Powell, and it's to the commission.
We discussed signage. I think they're gonna do 14 and they're gonna do 181, isn't it?
I think 181 and 14 were,
Yeah.
they're already working on 14.
Yeah.
But I think we talked about doing 181 next. And I said, I think Union as a, what do we call that, collector route should also be prioritized on the list.
Union's got some signs, so does 181. We don't have one at 181 in Union, and that's where, I mean, street construction couldn't even find us out there.
Well, and as far as the bridges, I was just talking about those today. They have no intentions to do anything with 80th because they're saying that in order to let equipment pass, the proposition to me was, well, do you want to block it off? That's what I was told.
The banister's only a rock.
Mm-hmm.
If something's not there, it's like a bumper. If something's not there, a car's gonna slide off that bridge.
I made
went
that-
sideways on there one day.
I made that
What they
known
said
today.
was that the bridge is only 16 foot wide with the banisters, and their equipment can't fit between the banisters. That's why they have it built up
That's why
like
they've
that,
left
so
it
that-
off, and they left off the ones that are falling into the.
The ones that were knocked off, not falling off.
Sorry.
They were knocked off.
That, and then I made a suggestion to get a bid on hopefully several stone bridges to see if we can address that in that area. I specifically actually even talked about this one because I've looked at that several times myself with other people. I know you brought it up too.
Those are historical bridges too, and we need
I know.
to protect them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see what the highway department comes up with, and then
We'll
we'll.
adjourn until May the 31st, I guess, is what we're doing.